this.
All right. Well, let me add, before we start, well, okay, if you want to start now, that's fine.
Whenever you want. I don't care.
But I just want to, I thought I'd go over a few things and then you tell me if you're, cool talking about all this stuff, but these are a couple of the, main topics that I'd like to hit, allow you to do a history of Tartaria, the beginnings of it, the decline and fall, I guess I'd say, of the Tartarian Empire, which seems from reading your book to kind of coincide with some events with the Romanov dynasty in the 1700s, late 1700s. It seemed to coincide with, the independence movement here in the U.S. Just talk about how, I guess, the empire shrank and why. You can bring up anything you want from Fomenko to talk, or anything like that. Talk about just the Tartarian people. I'm very interested in why we do not know about this. I think the audience is going to be interested. And I should back up and tell you a little bit about my book. I started looking at these pyramids about 5 years ago. David Wilcock did about a 10-part series on these on Wisdom Teachings, which was a Gaia TV program. And I got interested because of the science that had been done in Russia. So I've been spending the last, first getting the geometry right, and then studying the existence of this geometry, both in man-made structures as well as in nature. And this is the geometry of the Phi spiral, which gets into a lot of torsion physics, but certainly for our sake, in terms of finding this, the earliest place that I've been able to find this is in the ancient Hindu and Buddhist temples, which go back, to what, 2000 BC, something like that. Also, about 3 months ago, I actually came up with what I think is going to be a pretty profound discovery. There's a sacred geometry text that was written about 40 years ago by Robert Lawler. And on the last page of that, he has a diagram of the Platonic solids. I don't know if you're familiar or study them at all, but they are supposed to morph, change, from one to the other. And no one has really come up with a kind of a creative process. And what I found was this old diagram, which was 2 dimensions, when you plot it into 3 dimensions, fits this pyramid geometry perfectly. Right. And this goes back again to the ancient Hindus, because the Hindus knew about the Platonic solids back in the ancient Vedas. So my thesis that I'm hoping to put into the book is that, mankind has known about this for literally 15,000 years or more. And there's got to be a reason why we lost that information. Now, this diagram, according to Lawler, was taught to people like Leonardo da Vinci and the like. So we know it, at least up until that point, perhaps they knew about the 3-dimensional aspect of it, although I don't know. But it just, then you get into the Tartarian Empire. There's classic examples, obviously, in Russia of this Tartarian architecture, as well there should be, as well as all over the world. I've tracked all that. I got hundreds of pictures. So the real key for me is what happened to the empire? How did it fall apart? Give people some sort of a reasonable understanding as to what your best, theories are, and as you talk about them in the book. And then, once we kind of get through that history, I want to talk about energy and healing, and the use of this specific geometry, which is in a lot of the buildings, and its role in either energy production and or healing. We can talk about star forts and mud floods if you'd like as well. It's all part of the history of the program. There's a lot to talk.
It's a 400-page book. We're just getting started. Where do you want to start, Charles?
Well, all right. Well, I think we ought to just start with, history. So why don't I start now? We can, just start chatting and let it go from there. But
well, do you want?
Hi, this is Charlie Zeiss with Stargate Pyramids and the Pyramid Science Foundation. I'm really excited today to have the opportunity to talk to Jamie Lee. For those of you who watched my video last week on the new things we were doing this year with Stargate Pyramids and the Foundation, I mentioned a new book that I had just recently found on Amazon dealing with the Tartarian Empire. For those of you who were watching our videos last year, you know that we did a 2 or 3 week study of Tartarian architecture and related it in general terms to the Russian pyramids, because we had found that geometry and that in the architecture of this ancient empire. But at the time, there was really no document or no book that was available in the public domain that really discussed these topics in a comprehensive way. So last week I mentioned to you that I had just found this new book, and I'm really happy to say that after I got my book on Saturday, I emailed Jamie after I'd gotten through about half of it, knew that he was someone I wanted to talk to. So I asked Jamie, and he was gracious enough to come on today and to talk to us. So Jamie, thank you for coming. And if you would, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about how you got interested in the Tartarian Empire and what made you interested in writing this book.
Do you go by Charlie or Charles or?
Charlie.
Charlie. My son's middle name is Charlie. My grandfather was Charles. His grandfather was Charles. So very familiar with that name. Thank you for having me on, Charlie. I really appreciate you reaching out. This is one of the most incredible stories I think we can get into as far as not only the incredible historical narrative, I call it her story because it's about the feminine divine. It's about how we all lived in one world peace, how we all communicated with each other, how we had healing energies and ways to create a higher consciousness. And I'm sure you've learned about the pyramids and Giza and around the world. They're ascension chambers. They're about us raising our consciousness into a higher level of being than what we're seeing today of this, whatever we call our society today, of this pandemic and being locked down and being treated like animals. This was the complete opposite of history, of her story about a benevolent society that was one world that's had basically able to communicate through higher consciousness intuitively. They could create through their minds. They could create physical, so the spiritual was coming down through them to enact in the physical world. Where us in the physical world, we try and bring the spirit into our physical realm instead of the other way around. And so they were able to, as I understand, create these incredible buildings like Chartres and Notre Dame and these Russian cathedrals. How did they build these all in the 15th, 16th century? I kept asking with horse and buggy. Doesn't make any sense. And then there's a lot of great researchers like John Levy, Flat Earth British. I don't care for her personally, but Marcia Romolo have done some really good, what our grandfather Charlie called yeoman's work, to bring light to this incredible story about what was here 100 years ago. I mean, I had to put it in color, even though it was more expensive, because it really brings out the vividness of this, as I titled, the greatest civilization ever to be erased from history. Well, why didn't we know about this? How come we were just learning about this now? How come these stories are just starting to be heard? And I got to give a lot of credit to this Antonio Fomenko and his partner Nozovsky. These are Russian scholars. They were at the Russian Academy of Sciences, the International Higher Education Sciences, Russian Academy of Technical Sciences, Moscow University. peer-reviewed, came out with this, I think it was 12-volume book or 7-volume book, History, Fiction, or Science. And so I bought those books, started downloading it, started reading about this incredible revisionist her story. And it's about reclaiming our past, the language, the crest, the universal language, the ancient writings. All of this dates back to, according to Flamenco, history really began at 1200 AD. 1200 AD is when the written language goes back to. So since 1200 is when we're resetting, because this is the Great Reset Part 2, as I'm calling it. Because the Great Reset Part 1, possibly, maybe there was some before, is to erase all knowledge of the Tartarians and to make it into something negative, like the Greek mythology has the Tartars as the underworld, the dark. You know, so they literally, and I'm talking about the Romanovs, I'm talking about why Russia split, St. Petersburg and Moscow were split up. It all started, the Russian Tartarian Empire began, from what I understand, I don't know about the beginnings, but it was there dominating in Russia, all over Russia, most of Northern Europe was Tartarian. That's why you have in the Scots, you have the Tartary, the Tartar plaid, and you see Tartar remnants of Tartary all over the world. And the cool thing about the United States was, I'm just writing about now, is that we were the center of what they called the ancient ones, the Black Moors. The Black Moors are what they called Africans in this country. Only 10% of Africans in this country actually came across from Africa. The rest were already here. And that's why you're seeing down in South Africa, South America, down in Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza and all these pyramids, they have the same form, the same shape, the same dimensions, the same cosmic alignment that all over the world. So there was this one commonality, this one knowledge, building these incredible pyramids in alignment for consciousness and for bringing down consciousness from the heavens, as above, so below. So these are all set in perfect, like you were talking about, Charlie, geometry, sacred geometry, Gematria, where they were able to use the Travertine and use the white. Why was it always white? Why is the outside of the casing of the pyramids white, the Travertine? Because they had resonance frequency. And in the king's chambers, all the sarcophagus, it was made to have a resonance frequency. And these frequencies were attuned to the heavens, to the higher consciousness. And that's what we're just getting into now. If you look at the motherboard of a chip of a computer and you look at the floor of the Notre Dame on the floor, it has the exact same patterns of resonance frequency. So all these churches were ancient times. Tartarians would bring people. I do a chapter here, I can bring this up, on the healing centers. This is what's really cool. I don't know, I mean, there's so much in here. It's just like, so chapter 7, let me bring this up here, gets into leaf garden. This is one of the neatest things I found. Well, no, one of the many, but let me see if I can bring this up here. Boom, bada boom, and share screen. Let's see if we can do this. Window, yeah, okay. All right, so this is from the book on revisionist history and getting into, I mean, this is what they're saying. The Jesuits built this in 1767, this aqueduct of concrete and cement. I don't know if you can see this on your screen yet, but you know,
there we go. Now it's good.
yeah, okay. So this is from my book. It's almost 400 pages. I just wanted to get it all out there. But here we see from around the world the same picture hieroglyphs, and then we're being told these fanatical, unbelievable, because it's unbelievable stories that these were all built in 1500s, 1600s, these incredible stories. And here Flamenco gets into the revisionist history. But what I want to get into was chapter 6, healing centers, because this, and star forts. Well, we can start with star forts. Star forts, if you see around the world, and you know, how many people know about star forts? I didn't until I started getting into this. And
I knew about them about starting 6 months ago.
Yep. And here we have them all around the world, all across, everywhere we look. There's these incredible star forts. Almost 320 of them in the United States alone. These were energy centers. They're always around water. They have gematria frequencies, and then if you put them under cymatics, if you put them under vibration, you see the same patterns on cymatics for vibrational sound that you see the star forts of energy. Well, how cool is that? There was definite intention to their designs. And sound is vibration in the ether. Vibrations affect, disturb, excite magnetic fields. Different frequencies have different effects on our bodies. Cymatics shows us the geometrical shapes. So these star forts, and I don't know if you know about Emoto and is using the water and
sure.
mention in, we see the same exact patterns. Coinky Dinky? I don't think so. And here you see them from all around. I mean, 91 star forts, not 300.
Yep.
So you see these are like, you see the same shape as the Freemasonry and whatnot.
Right.
Symbolism has intention. Symbolism has design in it, and it has frequency modulating effects. So you can see them around water. They had the star forts. They brought the energy in, and then they were able to heal. I mean, this is why we see in the quote Bible that they lived hundreds and hundreds of years. They lived a long time because they're all about healing. Even the Statue of Liberty is an 11-pointed star that Albert Pike, sits on the head. You were talking about the tetrahedrons and the platonic solids. Where here you're sitting on a hedacagram, literally means peels, shells, or husks of the tree of knowledge. So they set their intention, and then what they did, the Romanovs who took over, they got a whole, as I understand it now, Charlie, I'm still getting information on this, but basically the Romanovs got a hold of the ancient healing technologies, the frequencies, and like anything else, it can be used for good or it could be used for bad. And they took it over and they started using the Wi-Fi that they had back then, these cymatic frequencies, and used it to control and to own. And that's who we've been under. And that dovetails perfectly with the fallen angels from the 1850s to 1870s coming down here in the 1850s, 1870s. What did we have? We had the Darwin evolution, we had Huxley, we had all these things change. We went from round geocentric Earth to round ball. We went from, all the public education system started the indoctrinations. And so this is when they separated the children from the parents. And this is when they took the Tartarians and they put them in the insane asylums, and they took the children, they sold them across the United States on foundling trains so they could separate the knowledge. And once you get one generation believing one thing, the next generation assumes it to be true. Okay. So that is kind of a catch-all, but this is what they did. Is classic is they took the parents away and then they taught the children, the next generation would teach the children, oh, we went to the moon, we did all this stuff. Well, that's how they got rid of the Tartarian knowledge. And I did a whole thing on the history of public education starting in 1910. So when the Rockefellers started their nonprofit organizations and created the nonprofits, and then with the nonprofits, they sheltered their wealth, and they were able to buy up all the Smithsonian Institute, the Columbia hospitals, the doctors, the whole thing, started the whole mass reset of education. So here we can see that these energy star forts with computer-aided design, we're seeing they already knew. And think about how they built these star forts or how they built these buildings. I mean, think of all the workers you would need: apprentices, the construction workers, supervisors, drywall installers, pipe fitters, iron. Where did they all come from to build all these? It's impossible, given the narrative that we've been sold, that these were built by back in the 1600s. So these healing centers, in getting into these frequencies, if you turn the right frequencies, you can heal animals. So this is what's really cool about this place in Tiergarten, Germany. The Berlin Zoo has 1,400 species of 20,000 animals on 35 hectares. So that's what, about 80 acres. And it's really cool because they have this bell right in the middle. You can see this bell right here.
Right.
And this is the Elephant Healing Center with just for elephants for healing. Notice the designs are very similar to Angkor Wat and some of this Asian civilizations we're seeing there. But this is what I found is really cool, this Carillion Tower bell. 68 bells weighing 48 metric tons.
Yeah.
Coming 5.5 fully chromatic octaves. The largest bell weighs 17,200 pounds. And this is for healing animals they erected. How did they erect a bell 17,200 pounds and put it up there? Are you kidding me? Highly advanced technology.
Sure.
And they're saying, oh, it started in 1844, yada, yada. They changed the revisionist history. So here we see, and then I started looking at gardens. And I remember all the French have their elegant gardens. Why are these gardens so elegant? It's the same thing. You go into gardens and you get healed. They're all based on cymatics of healing frequency,
Right.
and tonal qualities that you walk around and you get that in the healing churches and the sacred spaces, and you can see the same thing. And then they advertise these in crop circles. Crop circles are nothing more than lasers fired through filters to get what they want. So they can put any design, they can change any molecule. That's how they took down 9/11. All they did was get the molecule frequencies of the metal or the steel, what they wanted to vibrate. They excited at super high tensions, and then they can literally just obliterate it. And that's what you saw on 9/11. Same principles being used, same sacred geometry being used. And then we see the cymatics going on in the church windows. Colors are vibrations as well, and they use the same somatic patterns in the churches. So the light would come through, it'd vibrate through these frequencies. The frequencies would vibrate with the floor frequencies, and that would create this harmonic with the gematria that's set up in the building, this incredible healing centers. And then they had these magnificent, look at these organ pipes, Charlie. I mean, these are in San Francisco. Look at how tall the guy is. So you'd walk in there, these buildings, these churches, and you walk out just feeling ecstasy. And then the church got a hold of it and said, oh, it's God talking to you. No, it's creation of man. It's man's higher consciousness creating these beautiful healing centers using sound, vibration, and frequency. Tesla, right? Universe, frequency, vibration, and energy. That's what they did. And we have this knowledge. It's been buried from us. And if you look at the frequencies being put out at the 528 with the Solfeggio scale, this is the healing frequency at 528. Divided by 12 equals 36.666. There's that number. But look at these pipe organs. What do you think the kind of construction it would take, just for a moment, to get all these pipe organs set up, to get all the tonal frequencies put together, to put it in this massive, massive buildings like this, and then be able to play the sounds throughout the whole cathedrals? I mean, my gosh, just in alone, and those creations are incredible. And then we get into the buildings. I mean, oh my gosh, 13th century, they're saying these things were built. How did they get up there? Where did they get the concrete? Where did they mix it at? How did they get the stones from? Where did they come from? How did they put them together? How did they cut the stone? How did they put them hundreds of feet, dozens of stories up in the air? How did they do the ceiling vaults? How did they get the paint from? I mean, these elegant, incredible designs, and they're all in sacred manner. They all have sacred geometry. And then these we see here, these red and white buildings, these are power centers. This is how they used to run everything. When you see these red and white buildings,
That's right.
That's their power centers. That was the ancients. And we see the dome, these have copper in them. And like out here in California, we have the gold rush, but I didn't realize that copper was hugely mined here too. We even had we have towns called Copper City and Copperopolis, because there were all these copper mines in California that were mining copper to make these domes for energy centers. And then on top of them were the Wi-Fi. And you can see further on that these were connected to the ether. And by bringing the ether down, the connecting, that's what Tesla did too. He put a Tesla coil in the air and grounded it to Earth. But here's—
Can you scroll back up? Could you scroll back up to this center picture here? I'm going to have this in my book as well. I think this is a cathedral, that one in the middle. Is that from Ukraine? I can't remember.
It could be. I could have gone through and labeled all.
Well, that's all right, but I'm not sure either. But it's either from Russia or Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I was going to just ask you to comment if you have some thoughts on this. The three spires actually in that picture are the perfect geometry of the Russian pyramids that I make. And so I have found that it's when I do the mathematics and the sacred geometry, this is really a phi cubed geometry, which seems to have a unique component in nature. As I mentioned before we started taping, that geometry in an ancient diagram in 2 dimensions, when you plot it in 3, shows that the progression of the platonic solids or forms actually occurs within this precise geometry, which is that geometry of the spire. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if this were originally an energy uh, production center or an energy power plant, what would have been the role, or can you guess, of having those spires with that geometry in this structure?
Well, one is free energy, unlimited free energy. And I get into
Yeah.
it further about inside the buildings, how they use the rebar and they use vents. So let's say I want to trap cold air. Where do I trap cold air? I trap it down in the basement. Where do I want to trap hot air? I trap it up in the roof. So then I just have to open the vents in the buildings, and I got the rebar to resonate. And so I could bring air conditioning up from the bottom, and I could bring heat down from the top. That's an inner heating cooling system part of this. The outer system, as I understand it, with copper in the domes, and then you have the magnetricity going around it. And then further down, I show how the voltage is connected. Let's just go through this a little more, because I get into that, what you're talking about.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Because it's so much, Charlie. It's just fun to go back over this. I haven't gone through this a little bit. So the white cities is what they were about. The white Travertine, the white. That's what Russia was known as, the white city. And so you see the exhibitions, these mass exhibitions they put on were the white cities. And again, we see the spires, we see the dome shapes, we see the same features over and over again. Look at these bathhouses they had. Look at how much fun they had. I mean, these cathedrals. Here's another white Capitol, white dome building, because they're bringing energy down. The sun heats it up. The Travertine and the white limestone too, vibrates. And in that vibration, it creates a resonant frequency into the dome. And then because of the sacred geometry, it rolls around and creates these energy devices. And then they can just store energy all they want. Power at will to go anywhere they want, anytime they want. Look at in Russia, they have the celebrated domes in here, the onion domes. And these the same kind of imagery we see over and over, not just in Russia, not just in Europe, not just in Africa, not just in Asia, not just in South America. Even up to Alaska, even down in Australia, same designs worldwide. Well, how do they carve into rock? How do they build these buildings straight down into rock? Again, it boggles the mind to think how much we've been lied to, but then it's enlightening and beautiful to think the elegant and supreme designs of these buildings with these minarets. We thought the minarets were there for, so the Islamics can pray 5 times a day. No, they were energy centers. And here's your 5 pieces again, Charlie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're exactly right with the platonic solids and the tetrahedrons, that they're creating these energy centers with these devices, and then they're bringing the ether down and connecting with the voltage. And then they were able to literally think about how a laser could carve something up. They could literally take a rock and with their minds create these laser carvings. This is where we're heading to again. This is part of the Kali Yuga, the Yuga cycles of the days of the ancient Greeks, the days of the ancient civilizations like pyramid builders. How did they do this? Well, they did it through mind. They did it, be able to higher consciousness, be able to use sound vibration, creating, they said the Bible, this is the word. No, before the word was the thought. Before the thought, after the thought was the consciousness to tell yourself to create the vibration in your throat, to create the frequencies, to create the word. So they don't tell us any of that. But look at this one picture here, Charlie. This fascinates me. This is in, I think this is in charts. Look at the figurines. They're statues, they're deities. They were all honored, and then look at the details. This is all like 50, 80, 100 feet up in the air.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
I know.
How they put this and why? Why would they design it like this? And this is where our homework is. And that's what I really, one of the reasons I came on your show is because you're doing the yeoman's work, is understanding the frequency, resonance, vibrations of these. And once we understand it, we're going to be able to reclaim our past. We're going to be able to heal ourselves. We're going to be able to take this. Look at the stained glass. I mean, I don't know if anybody's worked with stained glass, but this ain't easy. To put it in these patterns. And it's just amazing how these domes were for resonant frequencies. Imagine it ringing like a bell, and like a bell, as it opens up, it resonates even more. So the domes are like large bells, ding, 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 as I understand it. And then these incredibly elegant designs that were similar, like I said, all over the world, and these grand arches. These arches had another major energy center. Again, we're seeing the same kind of onion dome with the tops on them. And I just showed that it's all over the world. Turkey, South America, same exact designs, which proves we are one
That's right.
world, proves we're under similar design. It wasn't the
Right.
Romans, it wasn't the Gothic, it wasn't the Renaissance. All that, excuse my French, is bullshit. It's all our lies, massive lies. Look at the Biltmore, the
Yes.
home of Anderson Cooper, the Vanderbilts, you know.
That's
Yeah,
right.
they lived in poverty. No, they knocked off the Tartarians who lived in elegant, beautiful designs, and they took them over themselves.
Right.
They put themselves in charge over the top of it. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, those are all their mansions. And again, the impossible engineering, like how do they build these waterways? I didn't realize these waterways were even there until I started doing research. All up and down the East Coast, 3,000 miles of waterway in the 1800s, dredged, 137 miles wide and 35 feet deep, completed in 1829. What did they use to do that? How did they build all these canals and waterways? Well, the waterways were part of their energy system. So what they did was they built these waterways to feed the star forts. If you look at the waterways, they're all along the star forts too. The Great Wall of China, what was that about? Well, that's when the Tartarians and the Mongols and the Genghis Khan, the Chinese had their emperors and they wanted to retain their power, and Genghis Khan wanted to bring the Tartarians everywhere. So they built this wall. I mean, think about this wall. How could they build this wall? If you're building it for protection, how hard would it be at one point of this massive wall to get 5,500 miles? How hard would it be to get over one place if you wanted to? So the wall was not so much about keeping people out as it was to divide this area between us and them. And that was between the Great Wall of China went all the way through, but the Tartarians were above and the ancient Chinese were below. And then the inner city walls and whatnot. So the whole China, we don't hear about Asia, we don't hear about their cultures, their philosophies and whatnot for a reason, because they had all of these things already marked up, and they were able to bring a higher vibration and frequency back. They had 24 locks, 60 bridges. Again, 1633 they built this. No way.
Right.
And then the stones. How did they cut these stones? Lebanon and Baalbek and everything. I mean, look at the people here, perfectly carved, perfectly cut. We have no machines that could do this today.
Right.
Okay. No machines can lift these pieces up, yet they were able to do this. And look at the intricacy of their carvings. There was serious intention. And then down in Easter Island, and they don't show you that there's bodies below these as well, or any of these cuts, like these beautiful cuts that are still true today. It just, we're on the ascension towards higher consciousness after being dumb and numbed down since the dark ages of 500 years ago. And then they say these were water storage devices. This is Bath. I've actually went there in England, and you have to go 3 stories down to get to where they lived. And I always wondered, well, if the Romans lived, back then, and all this dirt is piled up, man, we buried a bunch. Well, now I learned it was the mud flood, right? The mud flood, they buried, they used energy vibration. They took the geoengineering technology, and they created earthquakes. They created floods. They created disasters, as well as frequency annihilation. But look at Angkor Wat. Look at how they drilled down into stone, tens of floors, literally into the ground with these intricate designs. This wasn't just for waterways. These were water temples. Water is for healing. Water carries memory of everything, right? And it's beautiful. It's elegant. It's fantastic. How do they cut these stairs? Again, this is the resonant frequency of a microchip, of a chip on a computer. Same designs. And then we have these underground traveling in these pneumatic tubes in Washington and London that they didn't tell us about. This is another little secret. They got these underground caverns everywhere across the world. They're like little moles they've drilled down. And again, drilling down through bedrock. How did they drill all the way down, tens of stories through bedrock? What technology produced that? How could they build on these stone monuments, these elegant cathedrals and churches and castles? I mean, it just blows the mind to think, how did they build that, Charlie?
Well, that's of course
right?
Exactly right. I mean, they had to have free energy. They had to have technology that we can only dream of at this point.
Well, so, but the cool thing, it's available to us now because we can see.
Yeah.
traveling isn't going to new places and seeing with new eyes. Traveling is seeing the same thing with a new set of eyes. So I'm looking at this thing going, okay, two things. One is, okay, they're up on this middle of this cliff, and every drop off is hundreds of feet. Like, oh God. So that means there's only one entrance probably from over there. And then they had to build it. Why did they build it way up here? Why did they have this? Now, where did they get their food from? These aren't gardens. These are all cemented in. Where did their food come in? Well, it turns out that because of their higher vibrational frequencies, they didn't need to eat. They were breatharians. They lived they didn't need food. They were like plants. They photosynthesized. And again, we're hearing about grounding. We're hearing about eating the sun and all of these different things here. So what I understand is they were able to not need food. In fact, a lot of these buildings, the Tartarian buildings, did not have sewer systems, did not have toilets in them.
Right.
So that's another confirmation, as we're putting the story together. It can be revised at any time, of what we're learning about the great Tartarians. I mean, look at the libraries. I mean, do we value books today? Not at all. But they had these libraries that I would just love to spend the rest of my life going and looking at these libraries.
Sure.
Because this contains all the knowledge. What's the Vatican got underneath them? All the knowledge. They're the holders of all the knowledge. And now we're on the internet and we've lost that knowledge. So it's really critical that people say books. Really critical. All right, so this is your sweet spot, free energy everywhere. Now, it's not electricity, it's magnetricity, because magnetricity is the ether, okay? Magnetite, magnets. What's the Earth's core? Magnet. But we don't talk about magnets. Electricity is transfer. Magneticity is everywhere. So when I stick a copper rod in the ground and stick it up high, I can connect to the ether, air, they call it. That's what we're able to do. And so we can take this electricity and we could plug it in anywhere, and we could have free energy anywhere we wanted, anywhere in the world. And this is what Tesla did in Wardenclyffe in Jersey. He tapped into these towers. Well, look at the design. There's your dome. There's your pyramid, just as you're saying. And boom, they just connected into the earth bottom, and they connected to the, quote, gravity wave above. And they call it the telluric transmission system. And here you can see, Charlie, the actual in works. You can see that frequency of harvesting lightning. And lightning comes from the ground too. This picture over here on the right was pictures I took in Paradise when they went there, when they literally murdered, lack of a better word, tens of thousands of people in Paradise. But we saw trees burning from the bottom because they were using underground, ultra low frequencies, okay? They were going underground to hit the houses. They were going underground to torch the trees. And trees were burning from the inside. And this picture right here of a Tesla tower, this is in Milford, Texas. I actually went there last year. And this is a Tesla device that's actual in use above Waco, below Dallas in Texas, where if they turn off our power, this is going to be their power source, is underground. Okay. So they're going to be able to use ULF. They'll be able to use their Gwen towers, and we'll be shut off. All right, so wireless technology comes in. No, they've had this forever. And this is what I get into, is all the Marconi. No, that's just, we always see the one guy, Tesla. You always see the one guy, who shot Kennedy, one guy. Who invented, free energy, one guy. No, right. It's all a bunch of lies. So this is just, we had wireless technology way back then. Notice numbers 33. You can see their little symbolism telling you. And then harvesting lightning. Again, it comes from the ground, it comes from the up. And so you can step it up or step it down. You could step a capacitor down, or you could step the energy up. And that's the same thing they do with nature. So they can create lightning, they can harvest energy, free energy anywhere. All these nuclear power plants, nuclear doesn't exist. Nuclear energy, Hiroshima, Nagasaki should be radiated and just destroyed by now. Chernobyl should be destroyed by now. What happened to Fukushima, folks? All the radiation coming from Fukushima. No, that's all to tell us lies, because these nuke power centers are actually energy, water vapor machines, and they're used to control the weather. And so they release huge amounts of water vapor, and then they use the golf ball RF radio frequency devices. You see the radio frequency devices, you see the Doppler radar. That's what they use to steer the weather. Once they send up the water vapors, they inject it with aluminum and strontium, and the aluminum is reflective so they can steer it, and the strontium combines with the cloud condensation nuclei that we've destroyed with our our pollution and our coal ash because we can't make rain anymore. And so this is how they make rain. And the nuclear power plants are one way. Geysers here, we got Geyserville, that's another way they do it. So wherever you see these huge plumes of these, what they're called wet surface air coolers, those are what they're using to make weather.
Wow. Okay.
That's the sidebar. So they step up, they step down the energy, and then they laser induced plasma channels. That's exactly the same thing we're doing today. And I get through the history of all that, went through the lightning antenna and how they attract energy and how they can download energy, secrets of the universe. And here you just see them, look at them. Here's how you do it. Energy comes down. This is the Empire State Building. So we got a huge picture of the Empire State Building with the balloon they used to travel in. So these are energy. This is where's this in Taipei, the largest towers in the world. So here we see that they're harvesting energy. And then here we see another one right here. You can see it just bringing in that. Remember they talked about the top of these. Here's the fires. Here's your frequencies, and here's they're bringing in the harvesting energy. And just above the surface of the ground, this is the mechanics of it. This is the surface of the ground, about 2 to 4 feet up. There's a null of atmospheric frequencies that get stronger until you get to 9 to 15 feet above the surface, and they become very strong. And I encourage everybody that wants to get into this to look up Philip Callahan, because he went to England and those towers in England and whatnot, the cement towers, those were energy harvesting centers as well. And if you look over here on this right picture, you can see the same as the left picture. You can see the energy device here, and you can see the energy device in use right here. And then all they're doing is connecting a copper rod down to the ground and using these devices to harvest the energy. They've had free energy, Charlie, forever, and they charge us and they take it away from us. And here you see pictures of the old day without wires, wireless communication hundreds of years ago. And then here I get into the copper domes about how the dome frequencies work like a speaker and a bell, and to transmit the energy down to the towers. And then here are the copper domes and how they access it. So we're just getting to learn this knowledge. You see all the copper domes and whatnot, from everywhere. Again, this is the patina, to harvest energy. Why are there copper domes in all the building? Copper extraction. I get into the whole copper process. And again, this is California. Michigan had the world's greatest copper mines because the United States used to be the capital center of the ancient ones. Did you know that? Did you know that we were the center of the entire world at one point?
I did not know that.
Yep, the ancient ones out of Utah. I just did a videos on that. The Washatas, who were the Black Moors. And so that's why you have Zionists in Utah. You have the Great Salt Lake up until 100 years ago. The Great Salt Lake was real, and it was really salty. That's why they called it the Great Salt Lake, because it was an ocean, and California was an island up until the 1820s, until the great floods and the great events that I get into a little later destroyed it all. And they used copper and all these copper mines. But the United States was the center of the Western, I don't like to use the word empire, but civilized nations of the Tartarians. San Francisco, the Louisiana Purchase was really about the owners of the Washatas. That's why they use their name Washington. They bury all the names with putting the names on top. They bury all the healing centers by putting the churches on top. That's what they do. They cover up on top of what used to be. So that's why uncovering, discovering, whatnot. So here's Copperopolis, 1860. So remember the 49ers, they came over in covered wagon.
Sure.
1849, the 49ers were named after the gold rush. And by 1860, they had all these copper mines. Well, why would you have in 1860 these massive copper mines? Now, granted, they had to go all the way around the Cape Horn. They had to sail all the way around because they couldn't get over the Sierras. They couldn't get across the Great Salt Lake. They had to come by ship. Are you kidding me? It makes no sense.
Right.
They were already here. And here we see again, Empire State Building. You walk into the lobby, and here it's showing you the energy center. It's showing you, hey, we're harvesting energy. Here's what we're doing. It's coming right from the top of here. And here's these buildings. And I show the world's tallest buildings. And then I show, all these same again designs. Just really to bring home the point that we had this free energy. Here's Callahan's work with these Druid towers in England. And the Druids seeded the Egyptians and went from west to east. That's the other thing, the revisionist history. We didn't go east to west with knowledge. We went west to east. The Black Moors, the Washatas, they were taken over to England for slavery, not the other way around. Everything's bass backwards. So here in the Towers of England, the Round Towers, I highly encourage everyone to get into this because it shows that here's your energy production, right? Here's the towers, which had powerful amplifiers, alpha brain wave region. So alpha is our thinking brain, our thinking state. And then you had the 3000 hertz and electrical induction. And in these towers, Charlie, what they do is they fill them with dirt and magnets. And they were able to create dipoles from the earth, from the consciousness of the ether energy and the consciousness of the ground energy. You can see the North Pole, South Pole, and creating these dipoles. And then these windows and whatnot, all they do is fill them with dirt, and they create higher zones of frequency, different frequencies, by adding dirt to the bases. And that's why those windows were there, so they could add more. And so
Add more. Okay.
Huh?
Sure, and that would make perfect sense. Sure.
Yeah, so here's your resonant cavity. Here's your tuning pile, and they're basically just tuning forks. And then you adjust the frequency because you knew which frequencies you wanted to affect whatever change you were affecting, whether it be mentally, spiritually, or physically. And again, we see these all over the world. Started looking into them, and here's in Russia, the white, they're all in white.
Right.
Again, wouldn't it be something to be able to get back to these power stations and get these tuned back on again, get these coils turned up again, get free energy? Can you imagine a world if we had free energy? Would we need wars? Would we need countries? Would we need flags? Would we need government? Right. No, as long as it was used for benevolence. But this is the lesson we have to learn. Here you go. This is your sweet spot. So again, the pyramids, why are they all laid out the same? Why do they have the same structures? Why are they along the same ley lines and energy lines around the world? Because they had the same intention. Limestone, casing stones fit together perfectly. And again, we see the healing energy. We see the concentration, the lightning going down and through the top. This is a really cool book. It's hard to find now. I don't know if it's on PDF, but Seeds of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty. These guys did great work, and I can't find. It's hard to find the book, but they talked about over the pyramids. I don't know if you have this book or not.
No, I don't.
Talks about over the pyramids are all over ancient waterways because they use the ionization of the groundwater to grow seeds and then create the pyramids that use heightened seeds. This is how they grew superfood. So this is why I'm thinking they didn't need much food. They grew superfood, and you know, all your healing was able to take a seed or two, and they were able to live. And so most of the, I'll see if I can find the PDF for you on this too, because most of the ancient technology of the pyramids are built over these ancient waterways because the ionization, they do a whole investigational process of discovery of this and why do you know there's more mounds and more ancient mounds in the United States than in Egypt or Russia or anywhere else in the world? And they're older than any of the other mounds.
I remember that belief from your book. Yeah.
I'm just doing a whole thing on that now. My next thing on the Washitas is the mound builders. They're everywhere. And they're all over these waterways because they were harnessing the electromagnetic or magneticity energy of the world. Right. You know, the lost worlds. Why do they have all these deities they gave homage to? Because they respected nature. They had reverence. And again, here you see at the top, the energy fields going out from these towers on these designs. You know, so they could create the frequency to bring it in. They could create the frequency to put it out. And then here we see all the pyramids, the same kind of locations, the same kind of shapes, the same kind of designs. I mean, just in Mexico alone. And we're not told about these structures. We're not told why all these structures were destroyed or why they were built or what they were used for. You know, and that you're keeping that alive is important. There, you know, in China alone, 200 pyramids of different forms and shapes because they're creating different energy centers. And then I
was just going to say, I learned just this last week where the term pagan came from. If you go to Miranbar, there's a city, Bagan, and it used to be pagan. And that's the home for all of these beautiful temples with this geometry, you know, at the top of them, which I know were energy centers at one point in time. And that information traveled from obviously from Asia to the Middle East and then became part of the Christian lexicon and became vilified.
Yeah, exactly. You know, just again, we're at the precipice of rewriting, well, however long time period you want to get into, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years of history with this stuff. I mean, we are literally at the cusp of rewriting history, just with so many different subjects, but this to me is the most fascinating. So this is kind of like just a synopsis short of how this kinetic energy works. a magnetically oscillating current, and you create a second possessing the same frequency, the wireless transmission can pass through solid materials and through long distances.
Right.
Magnetism, magnetricity. So here we have the obelisk. These were energy centers as well. And so these are conducting, and then they put them around the Vesica Pisces. So this is the male principle. But again, how do they erect 323 tons, 110 tons? I mean, give me a break. Oh, they moved them from Europe over. And this is another thing I found. I'm doing another piece on this today. So here's the pyramids in the Grand Canyon. Did you know about this before the book? I didn't.
I did not know, but not until last weekend.
Yeah. And so here we have, there's a great site, dailyoddsandends.wordpress.com. But here we see that the Temple of Isis is in Egypt. I mean, Grand Canyon, how was it created? How much water was there? You know, Grand Canyon is right above the Great Salt Lake. So it makes sense. The Grand Canyon, the Colorado River, the Grand Canyon flooded out when California was an island, and then it became not an island anymore. It was ruled by Queen Califia. And Queen Califia used griffins, and she fed the griffins male flesh to keep the males who were trying to take over off her island. Anyway, so this gets into the whole Arizona, the Grand Canyon. You have Kincaid's Cave, and in there you have Buddha statues carved in. Look at how big those statues are in Grand Canyon. There's limits in the Grand Canyon that are off limits, just like Antarctica has been off limits since 1958. Right. You can't go there. Why can't you go there? Because they don't want you learning that the original zone, the original creation, is older than Egypt itself. And the patterns are the same layouts in the Grand Canyon are the same layouts we see in Cheops and back in Egypt as well. I mean, this is in Arizona, and you can't go there. Yeah. And they had the energy devices. This is where we get in. Think about a cycle, a circle. Think about Tamatius and the Greek writings, and we can't read and understand what they even wrote about back then. Well, we're just on the ascension towards rediscovering, relearning. And they had these things called these Dorje devices. And this is when you see the Tibetans and these ancients holding these devices. These were all powerful energy devices just in a scepter. This is what they could have used to destroy all of Tartarians, just this one piece in itself. Zor had one, Zeus had one, the ancients all had one. And these are these energy devices that were literally held in your hand. And when you had the power, they call it the spear of Longinus. When Christ was stabbed by Longinus and the blood spit into the earth, and the spear was held in Austria, and that Himmler got a hold of it, and that's how he was able to run Nazis. And then Patton got a hold of it. So this is these devices that have these energy devices that you held in your hand. And once you had one of these scepters, you were all rulers. But the thing about the Tartarians is they could do evil, they could do wrong, they could do terrible things with all this technology, but they chose good. They all chose to be benevolent. They all chose to be kind. They all chose to treat each other equally. The women ruled and the men enforced. It was all sacred, feminine, divine, nurture, nature. One of the only rules they had, Charlie, as I understand it, the Tartarians, was what you take from nature, you give back more.
Right. Okay.
Think about what the world would look like if we had free energy and our motto was what you take from nature, you give back more.
Give back more, sure.
It would be the do no harm.
That's right.
But an ultimate reverence for Mother Nature, who gives us all life. And we never pause for a moment to think, oh, thank you for that food, you were warm or sun coming up. We don't think that way because we don't rever nature, and we have to get back to that. So here's the flying machines. These are really cool. So look, there's the Empire State Building. Look at how they docked. They'd come up the Empire State Building, they'd load up here, and then they tap into the energy to fill the ship back up. And they all flew around in these airships. Here's one docked in the Empire State Building, and they could go anywhere they wanted. And it was free energy. They just hook up to another building, and boom, they just get more energy. Easy peasy, simple. And they could sail anywhere they wanted because what's water? It's conductive. So all they did was found out how to conduct the water into the energy of the ether of the earth, and they could sail anywhere they wanted. How fun would that be? Look at the boats they used to have.
Yep.
And then the electric railways. They had railways above water going anywhere they wanted, anytime they wanted. I mean, incredible traveling devices. These flying machines, the Vimana flying machines. Vedics talk about this. The ancient Zohar and the old books talk about the flying carpets and whatnot. Well, yeah, it was real. They were able to do that. Again, here's your energy devices. Doesn't that look like the TR-3B? You know, this old Vimana device. So they have ultimate power. They're military, and then we see in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, they see the helicopters and whatnot. and the
Sure.
planes, you know. And then they had, this is what I learned about the Sonero Aero Club in California in 1852. They had airships. So 1849, they came on horse and buggy and they discovered gold. By 1852, they had airships in Sacramento. I actually have this book. Over 1,200 newspaper articles talking about them having these hundreds of sightings of thousands of witnesses of these airships in 1858 in Sacramento. No, our history's been lied to. How about compressed air? Free energy, compressed air, right? Boom, they had trains running on compressed air everywhere. Look at these things. They have pictures of them all over the place running on these compressed air machines. And all you do is add a little more air, just like you would to fill up your tires. Boom, bada bing. I could go anywhere I wanted because the rail lines were already there. And then the compressed air. How many people know there were cars for sale that were selling for $1,000, 5-passenger, 7-passenger, 2,000, safest car in the world, simplest, lightest, fastest, best hill climber, easiest operated, most scientifically designed, most luxurious at any price, $1,000, $1,895. You can get a pneumatic tube, operating car that looked like this. Compressed air, anywhere you want. And now we got fossil fuels. You know, how many dinosaurs really died to give us the fossil fuels of billions and billions of gallons a year? All those dinosaurs that died 80 million years ago and got compressed with heat, made liquefaction, and we stick the drills down in the ground and we bring them up and we sell you oil, and that runs your cars. Oh my God. Show me a dinosaur. Dinosaur means terrible lizard. The word was created in 1848 by the National Academy of Sciences in Britain. They made up the word dinosaur. Before that, Egyptian pyramids, did they find dinosaurs when they excavated the 13 acres? No. Did they find dinosaurs anywhere else before 1850? No. They only found them in 1848 when all the history was revised. 1850 to 1870 is when everything's story got changed. So here we have these incredible automobiles still available. Here's the blueprints. Here's the plans. Anybody can make these. Compressed air. And these cathedrals and cathedrals, like I was talking about earlier, how they didn't need logs. I mean, these are andirons. These were frequency modulators where you just open up a room and you tap into the heat of the rebarbs, or you tap into the cooling from the basement. And it was very elegant and it was very simple, but they're using this piezoelectronics, and piezoelectronics is what jet engines fly on. Jet engines don't fly on fuel. They fly on the jet engine creating piezoelectronics, which is 90% of the thrust power of a plane. Just the same thing. They put a little helium in the wings. They use the piezoelectronics in the jet engines. They don't use fuel. They don't use jet fuel. They use it to start it, but that's it. It's all another huge lie. Smoke-free home heating. That's why they didn't have, then everything gets burned by fires. But these andirons, these great rooms, are able to heat because they're heating the walls. They're heating the floors. They're not heating through one area. I mean, think about our home designs. How stupid is it that we set our central heating at the center of the house, yet we run the ducts as far away from the central heating as we can, and then we put it under windows to take the energy away so it doesn't heat the house. It's the stupidest design in the world. Why don't you put them right in the center and put the heat at the center where all the power of the heat is? Why do you put them under the windows? Again, to use up energy, to cost more, so you spend more, all to get us into this society. So anyway, so that's how they heated up all these huge cathedrals. And then we see gas lights everywhere. Where did they get the gas? How could they run gas lamps everywhere? How did they run all this stuff all over the place? And these elegant, beautiful designs that are still around today. These are all lights that were back then 100, 150 years ago running on gas. They were all lit up. And then we have robots back in 1883. And, again, the technology they had fights, they had boxing matches. And so again, things that we're not told, shared with. Giants. How many giants were here?
Oh, yeah.
Look at Smithsonian admits to destruction of thousands of skeletons. Who funded the Smithsonian? The Rockefellers. So here you can see just a connection between the cover-ups of the ancients who were giants. Some of them were giants. Many of them were giants. And look in the United States, Charlie, how many giants there found.
Yeah.
I mean, all over. And notice this Midwest. Here's the Mississippi, which I'll get into a little bit. Notice that swath coming through there, because this is where there was a Great Barrier. Okay. And then the Great Salt Lake was the other one. And then California being the island was the other one. But these giants were found up to, 40 feet tall? As tall as that. And remember when we invaded Iraq over lies and killed 2 million people for the lies? but there were
Yes.
giants there. There were giants there. We have pictures of them. That was just recently. And then we have the legends. And all over the, like the map you and I have, if you look on the map, it shows the giant gigantes down in South America. They had a whole area called Gigante. And then the door, how big were these people? They had to walk through these doors.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
I mean, it's not just one area. It's not just one country. It's not just one continent. It's everywhere. Had these incredible, massive doors. This is from in front of the National Library of Congress. I mean, they were here, there. Look at the books they had.
Yeah.
And the guns they had. Hatchets. Can you imagine trying to chop somebody's heads off with that thing? And then we were fossilized possibly at one point where they used the volcanic ash. They used these events to literally freeze fry people or animals, these giant animals in place. Could these have been pets of the giants? I mean, it makes you wonder what the world could have looked like back then, right?
Absolutely.
When these
I
animals.
looked at these pictures and I was absolutely amazed.
Me too. And just that they have these, you see one, you go, oh, that's coincidence. But you see them all around the world and you can see the shapes and the faces. You go, well,
that's right.
Maybe it's not so much coincidence. And then the Russia, where a lot of this emanates from in the history, science and fiction, I get into the whole history of the white Russia and their incredible buildings. And these seven sisters, they're called the Stalin high rises. And remember Stalin and Lenin, they were just puppeteers for the Jesuits. The whole Bolshevik revolution was to get rid of the Tartarians. We talk about the Holocaust of 6 million people now being revised to 1 million people, but we all talk about 6 million people. Well, excuse me, but 40 to 50 million Russians were purged at that same time, and we don't give them boo. We don't talk about how 40 to 50 million were starved to death. We don't talk about how FDR put in trains for the Holodomor 5 million people after Germany that fled Russia down to Germany, that were put in slave labor in Germany and returned to Stalin and killed about that. We don't talk about any of that because we don't want to know about the Tartarians. We don't want to learn about these incredible people who lived in a benevolent world, all in white. Tartaristan, Russia's most ancient city. This could be where it all began back then on the Volga. And then burning it all down. You read on history and the great fires of everything, they torch it all. Once they get done, they torch it all down. Oh, we built these incredible systems and then we torched them all down. And then the railway system. What year do you think this was? 1890, they had this railway system?
Yeah.
Okay, look at California. Remember the 1849s, and I harp on this because it's the easiest to prove wrong. Look at the elaborate rail system by 1890. And remember, the car was not invented in mass production until 1906, 1910. Henry Ford did not begin mass production until 1910, 1915. So all this is horse and buggy, or by, bringing the steam engines over, bringing the iron railways, bringing the rivets, bringing the workers, clearing the lands, building the bridges. All of this by 1890. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Guys, nothing but freaking, look at these. How did they get these steam engines over there in 1849? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. 55,000 arrived by overseas. So what caused them to come to California from all over? And here's I'm showing how they built. Here's how you build a railroad to get over the Sierras. You'd have to build these land mounds. You'd have to level them up. You'd have to buck the trees. You'd have to put the trees down. You'd have to lay the iron. You'd have to lay the railway. You'd have to lay the rivets in. You'd have, and then you'd have to bring the steam engines in. Then you'd have to lay them on the tracks. And you'd have to get the wood to run the steam. Oh, are you kidding me? By 1855, they were crossing the Sierras with this kind of stuff?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And then through the Sierras, if you ever been through Sierra Nevadas, they literally had to cut through rock. They literally had to cut through rock. And this is where they said, oh, Chinese came over and they had black powder and that helped us. No. 1 foot per day. And then then I get through the snowstorms, 57 feet of snow, and they were still able to build these through here. Come on, guys. What story are you going to hold on to? First trains, 1804, and I get through the whole history of the railway station. That proves that they were already here well before. And then look at this. This isn't Budapest. This is a railway station, Charlie, 1877.
Yeah.
This was a railway station first constructed in 1846.
Right.
I mean, to run what? How big a railway station to run what?
Right.
Right. This is another railway station. This is in Midland Grand Hotel somewhere. This is
That's Budapest, isn't it? Yeah.
Belgium. So this is the Netherlands. So this is another place. I mean, again, how did they build these? Why did they build these? And then, you know, here's the first stone being laid when they finally connected the railways together, the Golden Spike, yada, yada. But again, look at these terminals.
Yeah,
You
I know.
Look at this is Pennsylvania. This is by you. This is
That's the New York terminal, which has been torn down, or
It was called the Pennsylvania Railway because Pennsylvania was created before Washington D.C.
Right.
and New York, because that was
right.
when
I think the one down below on the right is the one from Philadelphia. Yeah, there it is.
There you go. Yeah. I mean,
Broad Street Station. Yeah.
What you know, you go into Grand Central Station, you get an idea what used to be there, but look at how luxurious this is. Some of these are Rockefeller's trains and stuff, but look at how they traveled in the elegant design.
I know.
They had fun. And then mail orders. I mean, this was incredible. I've got these books. You can order them too. 1895, remember Montgomery Ward's catalog and Sears catalogs. These catalogs is how you got everything. And they were all shipped by rail. I mean, you got your boots, you got your guns, you got your clothes, you got everything, clocks. Look at how elegant design all these were. Well, this was not just settling the West and taking out the savages so the Western Europeans can come over and take it over. No. And then look at design. Again, all the United States capitals, all the dates they're constructed, 1790s to 1915, okay, 30 of them. So by 1932, 35 of the 50 state capitals were constructed, and they all look the same.
Yeah, they do.
How do they all look the same? Because they're all built by the same. Look at George Washington. First, they say his headstone, Freemason.
Freemason, that's right.
But first, he's Freemason. And then who sits on top of the Capitol building is Persephone. This is why they're destroying Washington, D.C. This is what all this nonsense is about, to destroy Washington, D.C. They created Washington, D.C. February 21st, 1871 to destroy her. And sitting on top is Persephone, or Isis. And this is the male Jesuit principle: to create, to destroy. They created Washington, D.C. to destroy her. And the two states on each side of Washington, D.C. are Virginia and Maryland, the Virgin Mary, and the birthing was Washington, D.C. So because the male sperm doesn't die during a man's lifetime and a woman at menopause loses life, bearing principles, the Jesuits, the men in black, say, we are the creators of life and we're going to create women and destroy them because we're the eternals. That's their logic. Totally destroying the feminine divine. Oh, the women ate the apple and ruined for everybody. Oh, the woman came out of Adam's rib. The word female comes from paying for a fee for the male. You would pay for her. That's why they call her a female. That's what, per son. We totally debase feminine divine. And it's time to bring back the feminine divine because we need her now. Because the male principle is destroying everything. So here's Washington, the apotheosis. Oh, how about the public courthouses? This is Sonoma County, 1906, built in 1880. Sonoma County, 2 hours north of San Francisco, middle of nowhere. So here you see these elegant designs again. And these are public houses. Public buildings, are you kidding me? Old city halls? What did they conduct in these old city halls, folks? These weren't forts. These weren't protection centers. And just deliver mail. I get into the Pony Express about, the Pony Express, what Wells Fargo has all their, covered wagons showing how they delivered the mail. No, that was only for a year and a half. It was a 24-day run. It often took months for them to do the 20. How did you get your mail? How did they get information saying, everybody come out to California, we're going to build these elegant railways and get all this stuff over and order all these parts to Washington and overseas to bring all these railways? How did they do that? How did they communicate? It's just massive. The lies are just massive. Post office buildings to move mail with horse and buggy.
Yes.
This is the official story, Charlie. This is what they're officially telling us is the reasons. New York. Oh, you have this book, 1880 New York. Just get that book and it'll destroy everything about what you ever thought about. What it was already there in 1880. That book is over 300 pages of illustrations of grandiose designs of New York in 1880.
There's also a great website called Old New York. I think it's .org.
Yep.
Which you can go block by block and you can see pictures of the old architecture.
Yeah. And again, how many people lived back then, right?
Yeah.
think about, and all they show is horse and buggy. They always show, and they never show the skies because they had all the balloons up there. But again, notice the curbs are everything's clean. Why would they have, if they got horse and buggies like that and everybody's walking, why would they have curbs and cement walkways that wide? Doesn't make any sense at all. And then look at these, you know, the Metropolitan House, Madison Square Garden. I mean, these buildings were magnificent. I would love to go back in time. Wouldn't it be fun to go back there and see some of this stuff?
Well, I know you've got a ton more that you could talk about, but I'm
let's stop here and coalesce.
Yeah, there's a couple of major questions that I think you touched on a lot of these, but trying to think about my audience, they've seen all this wonderful stuff now. And if they're like me, when I started seeing this for the first time, a lot of cognitive dissonance. So what in a couple of minutes was the primary way in which the Tartarian Empire, this worldwide empire, ended up collapsing? And I know that in your book you talk about some significant events in the late 1700s in Russia, and perhaps that coincided, of course, with our Declaration of Independence. I get the idea that the Tartarian Empire, essentially, North America was sort of like the Eastern Front in a gigantic war. So am I off base there?
No, not at all. And think in terms of, just start with the timeline starting with 1815 or 1850 to 1870 is kind of what I've zeroed on.
Okay.
So, as I understand, just a quick history is 1200 is when they took over all the information. 1200 is when they took over everything and began using the technology to get rid of Genghis Khan, to get rid of the Mongols, to get into Russia, to separate Moscow, St. Petersburg. And then they moved to, we have these maps like the one behind you from 1600s when they showed that the Tartarians were all across Europe.
I'm gonna lean over so people can see this. Yeah,
and so right above you, Charlie, is let me see if I can bring this up a little more. I'm kind of frozen here. So right above you, if you look at the United States, you see half of it. It's called disputed territory, and then the other half is all filled in. So Canada and North America, there were some major shifts that went on during that period of time. You can lean back now, but you can see all the writing in there, the details back from 1600. Those were all cities.
Something I was not aware of, that they probably started this far back as 1200.
Yeah, and the reason.
So just start there.
Okay, let me just pull this up. Well, I'll just go through the order I went through, and this is where I was.
Okay.
Let's just go back here because this kind of leads into how. Remember, I was talking about separating the children.
Yeah.
So before that, just to give these people viewing that haven't really gotten a sense of what the Tartarians were about. This is the Chicago World's Fair, 1893. And they had a World's Fair in Europe, in France, and they wanted to duplicate it in the United States because 27 million people attended the 1/4 of all Americans by horse and buggy attended the 1893 Chicago Columbian Exposition to celebrate Columbus's arrival in the New World, which Columbus was such a great mariner. He sailed the wrong way and he thought he was in India, and that's why we call them Indians. Official story. 27 million people come. 6 months later, the entire 690 acres is destroyed in Chicago. Remember the Chicago Fire, 1871? So they had the Great Chicago Fire in 1871. In 1893, they're having the Columbian Exhibition. And then that's 65,000 exhibits on 690 acres destroyed by fire. We see fire everywhere. Right. The fire is one of their great exterminators. Maybe they were using the resonance frequencies in the buildings to turn them and vibrate them to cause the fires, whatnot. But we see over and over again. But these guys had fun. I mean, these were massive buildings. In not only, look at the Ferris wheels, Charlie. They had houses.
Yeah.
They literally, look at these. What kind of engineering would it take today to be able to do that? They had balloon rides. They had slides that went down. They had this walkway that went around. I mean, it was amazing. This is the public library.
Well, Jamie, let me stop you here. Do you think that this architecture in this exposition and all the others was pre-existing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they just took it over. They just took it over and put new paint on it and put a new story on it. But it's still, the remnants are still there. And then this is what we get into, is separating the parents from the children. Very curious. These Nemo Prima babies were in exhibit halls up until 1940. They had infant incubators on display at the World Fairs. Why? Because they were getting rid of the children. They had these incubators where they showed them, and you could literally come and grab a baby out of these incubators and take them home. That's why they were there. And then the light shows, the energy, the Tesla and Edison were buddies. That's why I say the Tesla's another fictitious character, or possibly, because they put on these light shows and all these exhibitions and lit up these places together. They had they said they were opposition when they're not. And here's the button on May Day, 1893, that Grover turned on to turn on the power that ran the beacons, lit up all the buildings at night. I mean, when did we get the incandescent lamp? When did Benjamin Franklin fly the kite that had the key on it to discover lightning? I mean, these are all such bullshit stories. Oh, Benjamin Franklin was flying a kite and it had a key on it and hit lightning and discovered electricity. Columbus sailed the wrong way and found India. Called them India. Hey. It's so baloney. But then you see Tesla and Edison. They're in these energy centers right here, electric power. They're polyphase. They were in it together. No, they had all the stuff. Look at these lamps. I mean, these machines, these are fans. Look at these alternating current generators they had. How did they build them? And then the exhibition centers all lit up, same designs all over the world. St. Louis flew the first wireless telephone, early fax machine, automobile, airplane. So they introduce it through these fairs, and then they destroy them. They destroy the technology, they destroy the knowledge. How did they bring these people from all over the world? How they communicate with them? This is Sioux City, Iowa, the Corn Palace, Charlie. Look at this. These were grain palaces.
I've been there.
Amazing. For grain? To store grain? Oh, come on.
Right.
Anyway, they had fun. This is Coney Island had several different versions. I mean, you get into Coney Island exhibitions. Anyway, so again, we see it destroyed by fire, 1970, 1958. So when you say, yeah, they started in 1200, or I'm saying that, yeah, but they continued up until recently. Not the destruction of the people as much as it is, because there's still Tartarians that live in Russia and whatnot, but the destruction of all the buildings, destruction of the magnificence, the opulence, the elegance, the simplicity, the fun was all destroyed by fires and earthquakes and mud floods, which we'll get into now. So construction, destruction, World's Fair, you can see it being destroyed right after it was done. The great fires, boom, take it down. Knowledge is what we tell you. And this is the western capital of Tartary, was San Francisco. Here you see the Cliff Hotel, which I've been to many times, literally on a cliff. How did they build those buildings in 1894 on a cliff? Oh, destroyed by fire. The bathhouses, largest indoor swimming, 1896. Remember, 1849, they came again. Got to keep remembering, came over with bug wagon 1849 to find gold. Well, here you see these Sutro towers that had 517 dressing rooms, 25,000 bathers. There was a train that ran out there. It's on the coast of San Francisco, ran from the city. Look at this place. It was a place to go swimming. And they brought in fresh water and ocean water. They bring in the ocean water desalination plants, and they could all go swimming. I mean, it was elegant. It was beautiful. And then in 1894 in San Francisco, I grew up here. I didn't know any of this shit. 1894, they had the Midwinter International Exposition. 1894, they had 47-story tall buildings. And that's what now is called Golden Gate Park. And look at this guy. They had to do running a ball all the way through here. These buildings are massive. And they had the lit towers. In the 1915 in San Francisco, they had 18 million visitors. Again, how did they get there? 18 million visitors. Oh, again, this is 1915, Charlie. What year was the 1906 earthquake? 1906.
Yeah.
So 9 years later, they're hosting 18 million visitors after the great earthquake that destroyed all of San Francisco. And they, over 600 acres, they put on this incredible World's Fair, the 13th labor of Hercules, they called it. Oh, because we're rebuilding from the earthquake, we're going to put on a World Fair. Are you kidding me? Thomas Edison and Henry Ford had a manufacturing plant. They had the Liberty Bell was taken cross country, horse and buggy. They had this 48 light, 7 color, 48 story, I should say, 7 color San Francisco fog banks. They lit up the fog at night. They had the Marines out there. This crown jewel, 47-story building with thousands of jewels, 102,000 precious stones in them. And then they had a plane that flew inside the building of Henry Ford's car construction. The guy flew a plane at 45 miles an hour inside the frickin' building at 40 miles per hour in 1915. They just got the plane flying a few years ago. We're right. Come on. Now we're flying inside of buildings in San Francisco. Yay. Again, it just makes no sense. But I get into the whole layout, the Japanese gardens, the Eskimos that came down. They brought people from all over the world to light up the cities for San Francisco. And then this is the Trail of Tears. This is when they got rid of the Tartarians with the Trail of Tears through the Louisiana Purchase and taking over their lands. And this is celebrating the end of the trail, the desecration of the Tartarians with this image right here. This symbology of the Indian, which is really the Black Moors, which is really the Washitas, were the destruction of them. And so we get over and over these lights and lighting and everything. Like just elegant. San Diego, exact same year, 1915, had their own exhibitions. Look at these Buddha statues. I mean, these things are incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible buildings in 1915. Oh, by the way, San Diego's having at the same time another Panama exec, because we got to celebrate the Panama Canal opening up. No, it was already there.
Right.
Okay. Just blowing smoke. And look at this. They're talking about organs. Look at this organ. All year exhibition in San Diego in 1915. Elegant, because it was all about frequencies, healing frequencies. Down in Santa Cruz, off the coast down here, elegant designs on the coast. I mean, just massive. And then getting into the destruction. All right, so children for sale. So this started back in 1853 to 1929. 250,000 people from the New York East Coast were sent to the Midwest. Irish, whites, not just African blacks, white children. Where did they come from? Where did 250,000 children come from in 50, 60 years to be deported and sold off as slaves from Grand Central Station and others? They were sold. We have posters of them. Hey, children for sale. All right. And then the origins were these foundling homes. They call them foundling hospitals. These are children's foundling hospitals. This is how they got rid of the children. They put them in these foundling homes. Look at 1846, 1742, foundlings, the orphan trains. Children were put on trains all across the priests. Line up the children, 200 plus children, sold. Here's advertisements, children wanted to work the farms, to build out the Midwest after the floods had taken out and receded. They were building out the Midwest, so they needed children for manual labor. And then this is all across the world. This is what they used to have. Now, it was such a big deal. They had an ATM machine for children. It's called foundling wheels. And they literally had like a lazy Susan where inside you'd put the child and you'd rotate it to the outside, and then the Catholic nurses would come and take the children away. So it'd be total anonymity. Why did they give up their children? What was the cause of it? And then they took all the adults and they put them in the insane asylums. If you're in your sanity, does that mean you're insane?
Yeah.
So here we go in London again, 1247. All these insane asylums were built around the world because everybody's crazy. And they built these massive insane asylums. This is the Tartarian buildings they converted to get rid of the Tartarians. I did a whole thing a little bit further down here about the cemeteries and the crematories that were all over the insane asylums. They all had crematorium, not all of them, but most of them had crematoriums and had, look at these buildings. These are the Kirkbrides. These are Danvers State Hospital, Hudson Hospital. So all they did was took the Tartarian buildings, convert them to state hospitals, and put all the ones they want to get rid of in there. And then no one knew. They were all crazy. But they had hundreds and hundreds of these massive buildings all across the United States. This is how they got rid of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people in the last 100 years. Hard to fathom, hard to think about, but that's what we're concluding. 1891, Sonoma, by where I live. I mean, developmental center. So they got the feeble-minded in 1883, and then they got this, the Agnew State Hospital, Santa Clara. This is Jesuit school. This is Santa Clara University now. They turned it over from a foundling school to the Jesuit school. And then down you see down here, this one here, this is up the road here in Sonoma. This is the insane asylum in Napa State. And they had 500 patients, and they had an underground railroad. For 500 patients, they had this building? No.
Do you think that was a power station? Because I see the horizontal red and white stripes.
Very well could be.
Yeah.
And there's your 5 domes again. You know, that power of 5
yeah.
you're talking about. There you're talking about them again, the same designs. But my point, you know, how did you have underground railways if the thing was built in 1850?
Yeah.
It just proves the whole story nonsensical. And then burying the evidence, I get through the graves and sites where this is up where I live, Mendocino. We got a population. We're the most spread out population in Mendocino County out here. But look at the massive insane asylum they had, because in 1889, there were so many insane people in Sonoma and Napa, they had to move them up here and build these incredible buildings. And the other thing to notice is the stairways. Notice the stairways always go up to the 2nd floor.
Yes.
Okay, that's where we're going to get into the mud floods. So did they use Wi-Fi frequencies to get rid of people? Yes. There's stories about people's eyes being bulged out in the middle of the streets. Did they use earthquakes? Yes. Did they use insane asylums and crematories? Yes. Did they use mud floods? Yes. They used them all. You know, 7,000 bodies found under this insane asylum, 10,000, 25,000 under this unmarked graves. So here we have evidence of them purging them and not counting them. And here I get into the original question you had about the destruction.
Right.
So if they could use this frequencies modulation to help, they could use it to harm. And here we see them doing it today. Here's the 9/11 building. And if you think that thing came down in 104 stories in 10.3 seconds on its own footprint from jet fuel from an aluminum body that flew into a steel reinforced building, heavily steel reinforced, and brought it down in 10.3 seconds, you're wearing a mask.
Right.
You're completely brainwashed. And here we have pictures. These are pictures that I have and took some of them from the directed energy weapons that are used in Santa Rosa, that are used down in Malibu. Directly, look at this house cut in half.
Right.
The house is cut in half. Cannot happen with forest fires when the trees are still standing. A house cut in half. Come on. Cars completely torched and flipped on their roofs. This is not forest fires. So what did they do with the bones, Charlie? They buried them because they use them for energy. This is where skull and bones comes about. They only use the femurs and the heads. 200 miles underneath Paris alone with catacombs, 200 miles of skeletons, because they use the energy to harvest the souls, to bury the souls so they can't resurrect. This is what the game is about. It's about stealing our souls right now. And here you see the Club 322, Skull and Bones, all the members, presidents. But look at underneath. And here I do a population of Paris. And you can see the population, 228,000. Yet they're saying 250,000 people or more are buried under the ground. And so that would take a whole year's worth of people. It would, you know, so it doesn't make it any sense. And then they're all lit up, elaborate design, crosses, and not only under Paris, but we find they're under Lima, Peru, 70,000. We find they're under Wall Street. All the Black Moors they used, the slaves, they buried them under Wall Street, under the bones, because they're harvesting the energy of the bones. And then here we see the destruction of Tartarian structures. This is that 47-story crown of jewels being destroyed in 1916, right after the 1915 San Francisco exhibition. Mm-hmm. Why? Why did they take them down? Now that the site is Chrissy Field, which is just grass. There's nothing there. So they took it down to leave nothing, which makes no sense whatsoever. And then we see again the Rothschild fires and all the fires, and you see now these days all the churches catching fire, Notre Dame, and all the rest of them. This is all still part of the destruction. We're seeing the continued genocide on a mass scale. Hey, the Great Fire of London, what year was that? September 6th, 1676. What's the V for Vendetta movie about? The destruction of London. V for Vendetta, same date. They're telling you we did it and we're going to do it again. And then we see I go through the history of fires. Kasparov, the chess master, he gets
Right.
what happened to all the population, where did they all go? And then all the different words they use to mitigate, opaque, and diffuse our knowledge by calling them all different names of Muslims, Orthodox, Cathedra, Catholic, Renaissance, Chinese. All of these were Tartars, Tartar 14th century. I mean, all of it. And then I get into the numbers. How did they get rid of tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billion? Well, we just do a chronological short history from 1200 up till now, and we can see 30, 40, 80, 100, 137, 38. Let's call it 148. Let's call it 248.
Yeah.
Let's call it 300 million right here.
Right.
Okay. 300 million just in this one surface look at the destruction. And so then we can also get to the patent office and see back in 1904, they had the electromagnetic gun. They had the Wi-Fi energy to do that. And then we see the Jesuit reduction movement coming all through South America, destroying all the technology and all the cultures with the Inquisitions, all the knowledge. The Renaissance is only 500 years ago, was the Dark Ages. No information got out. Great Fire of 1776 in New York. Great Fire in New York again. Great fires everywhere. Just Google Great Fire. You can just look up Boston, Great Fires.
Oh, yeah.
And we see the destruction. San Francisco earthquake. That wasn't no earthquake. That was Wi-Fi. That was frequency modulation. The same thing we're seeing today, directed energy weapons, is the same thing we saw in 1906. Same thing we see in China. Look at these torch rail cars from 1906. Again, same exact profiles. It's nothing new under the sun. Then we have the Russians killing off the Russians, the Homodor event, when 10 million innocents. This is when they all fled Stalin. They went down to work in Germany because Stalin was purging them through starvation and whatnot. And then the carpet bombing, Kurt Vonnegut's book, what was it called? About Dresden and the carpet bombing of Dresden.
Right.
How they went over and over and over again because Dresden was one of the capitals of the Tartarians. And they wanted to get rid of it at all costs. What was Kurt Vonnegut's book? I'll think of it in a minute.
Was that Fahrenheit 451?
Yeah. Well, that's one of them. Slaughterhouse 5 was the one.
Slaughterhouse 5. That's this one. Yeah.
Fahrenheit 451. If you watch the Fahrenheit 451 trailer or watch the little 20-minute documentary, you should watch that because it's about Ben Franklin being the original fireman, and the firemen put out books. They go with their fires and they burn books because books are knowledge that's corrupted knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fake news. They're calling books. So it's interesting. They got this Fahrenheit 451 movie coming out about burning all the knowledge because they're doing a great reset again. They're going to do it with us again. So here you see Dresden just pulverized with the same things you see in Paradise and California here, the same kind of profile, same kind of MO. And again, I get through just at the end of the book, just listing all over the world. And you just scroll down, just all hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these Tartarian, beautiful, elegant, incredible structures. Yeah, there's an energy one. See the red and white there? Look at how beautiful those are. And
That's right.
And then all the exhibitions that were after that. And just to show people, this isn't just some one-off or something that just came about. These were just within our wheelhouse of 100 years ago. And I didn't get into, let me just pull that up real quick, because one thing to finish on the this is another significant event that ties into what we were talking about earlier about California. And this is a map that is very important. It's the New California. You see Louisiana Purchase. Look at Spanish Louisiana. This is from 1810. And you can see the New California New Album. You see the island, which was filled in then. And then you see why this is disputed territory up here. You see how that was California, and behind you, remember that map? It dovetails almost perfectly with all the lands that are written in down below here, but the ones above it are considered disputed territory up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the Confederate flag with the Roman gold and silver. I mean, they've owned this since the beginning. The White House is named after Andrew White, the first archbishop to land on the boat called the Freemason into Jamestown. And that's why the White House is called the White House. Rome, Maryland used to be the name of Maryland before it became Washington, D.C. The Potomac River used to be called the Tiber River. So what I want to show here, not the railroads, was the earthquakes that came about. Oh, this is the other thing that's cool, is the civilization that existed before. So we didn't get into the mud floods. So let's do that if we got time.
Yeah, let's do that real quick, because that'll be.
Where I'm before this. Okay, so this is the liquefaction events, the mud floods, and it's called Antiquitech, the old ancient technology they're calling Antiquitech. I haven't embraced that term, but that's what some people are using. So the life that lived below in the Egyptian pyramids, they used to be below. This is the eagle, the man, the sphinx, the phoenix, and the bull. It's all the 4 love signs of astrology. But we see all over the world these buildings that start at the 2nd floor, like we showed earlier, that had stairways going up to the 2nd and 3rd floors because there was great floods everywhere. We see buildings with half buildings, half windows everywhere. Right. Why are they only half floors? Because there wasn't vents that filled it in. And we have evidence on evidence on evidence of these massive mud floods. And before that, the civilizations existed 200 feet below. California had 200 miles of shoreline that was 200 feet below. If you look at a Google map of the California shoreline, you could see where it was. And this is what brought everybody over in 1849 on the gold rush, was the water receded during this great cataclysmic events where the waters up in Wyoming flooded the Great Salt Lake. It fled out through the Grand Canyon, destroyed all the temples down there. And then the island ceased to be of California. But this was underground. This is in Japan. This is all over the world. We see these underground civilizations, pyramids, underground, under 200 feet under the ocean. I mean, this is what used to exist. This is what used to be before these cataclysmic events. Oh, and this is what I was getting into, the Great Reset of 1811 to 1812. Check this out. 2,000 earthquakes in the central Midwest, between 6,000 to 10,000 earthquakes in Missouri, where the New Madrid, New Spain, is located. Remember that map on Spain before? This is where it happened. And they had so many earthquakes that it ranks as the largest in the United States as the settlement by Europeans. So literally the Midwest was flooded out the Mississippi River with these 6,000 earthquakes. And they said you could even hear the bells even rang in Philadelphia. Here, the tremors caused Eastern Seaboard, the tremors caused church bells to ring in Boston and Philadelphia. All the way from the Midwest, the earthquakes were felt that rang bells in the East Coast. That's how powerful. Then we had 1811, we had all these comets. Bright comets appeared before the sky, 260 days. We had the day without the summer, the winter without a summer along the East Coast in 1812. They couldn't grow any foods. And then we had here, I'm talking about the island of California. There's over 250 maps in Stanford University on islands of California. California, as I said, was an island up until the 1920s. And then what got everybody to come out to California for the gold rush was literally when the waters receded from the Sierra Nevadas, gold was literally sitting on top of the land. You could literally pick it up off the land. You didn't need picks. That's what brought people from China, because you literally pick it up. And that's what got the Jesuits to come in 1850s. When the water receded enough, they could make the transfer, and then they took over. And this Wonder Woman, the whole story about Wonder Woman and stuff, this comes from Queen Khalifa. This comes from the whole story of the Amazons of Paradise Island. Well, what are they reclaiming now in California? They're reclaiming paradise with all the attacks. It makes total sense. And here, a very, very high-end hotel, the Mark Hockman's, has a mural of Queen Khalifa in the building itself.
Right.
And it showed over 1,000 ships, and that she ruled. She was benevolent. And, California's coastline. Here's a picture of it. You can see the coastline here, 200 miles further out. And you can see the Fertile Crescent, why the first Crescent Valley of California became the agricultural land, because it was just recently the sea. And so we have all this evidence that it used to be Joe Montana. And the California floods, nobody knows about this. California flood, 1862, it flooded, 10 feet of rainfall in California in 43 days. 10 feet of rainfall in 43 days.
Yeah.
In 1861. the governor of California Leland Stanford had to rule out of San Francisco because Sacramento was under 10 feet of water for the entire year. Well, that was the water basin. That's where the Fertile Crescent is. That's where the food grew. So once this receded, then they redid all the buildings, and then they told the story about but here are the Jesuits. I get into the whole Jesuit founding, how the Jesuits have been here forever, and how they came here back at Knights of Malta in 1849. The Knights of Malta were in San Francisco. They were in Santa Clara. They were already here in 1849, folks. Remember that picture I showed you of the causeway, the aqueducts, 8 stories.
Yes.
By the Jesuits. Well, here we have the Knights Templar, Golden Gate Commandery, 1849, already is 1883, already stoned, already set in stone, that already were here. So this just gets into their whole story, his story. This was the Knights Templar in 1934 in San Francisco. I kind of focused on San Francisco because it's kind of hometown and I know it well. And just you can go through any city pretty much and find these same kind of narratives going on all over. And again, the fires. What happened? The Great Fires in San Francisco, 1850 Great Fire, 1851, 1833. How did all these fires happen? Because they got rid of them. They wanted to get rid of, they kept what they wanted. And then the kings and all the rulers that ruled. But again, it was the women and the elegant designs of the women. The women were elegant. And again, also we found that these toppers, these hats they wear, the tiaras, were also Wi-Fi energies as well, Charlie. They had frequencies in them and they could connect the source.
The one in the middle, the lady in the blue dress, I've measured that geometry and it matches that of the pyramid.
Yep. And that we actually found a headdress with the frequency with the copper and the magnet wire. I'll see if I can find that. But after I did this, I found some hats that actually had those in them. So they were connected to source. They were all about consciousness. And again, the American history. This is another huge revisionist history. The Black Moors were here. They didn't get the slavery trade was not. Here's all the pictures of the native copper-colored people, copper color, not blacks, not Negroes, not anything else, copper. That's why the South Americans, Central Americans, it was America. It was one America. It wasn't all divided up like it is now. And then they conflate it and confuse us by using terms like, make America great again. Well, you're talking about Central America? No. South America? No. Talking about Canadian? No. I'm talking about making America great again. Oh, you mean the white men of North America? Yeah. Okay. Those guys. Yeah. Okay, good. That's how they confuse us all the time.
Sure.
You don't know our language betrays us. That's why when we tell people to go to hell, we say hello. When we get up, we're asleep and we're at a funeral. That's why it's a wake. That's why it's a good morning. It's all in our language. That's why we go to school like fish. It's all betrayal. All right. So here's, again, the Black Moors' identity. And I just went through all the pictures in Egypt where they cut off all the noses because they didn't want everybody to know the Black Moor history. They didn't want to know the Black Tartarians. So there's giant Tartarians, there's white Tartarians, and then there's the Black Moors who were here before. And then the transatlantic slave trade went the other way. Here's the populations, imports by region. They're saying that in 1450 to 1900, 4 million slaves came over on boats. And I did the whole thing, how many boats they could make in a year, how many slaves they could get across. I think I have a chart here too. I did all the pictures of how many could fit in a boat. They would have to have 43,750 trips.
Oh my.
to make up how many people actually came over. And here are the names, the Washitas of Louisiana, all the names, these are all part of the Black Moors, the Washitas. So they're saying 4.25 million in African ships came across to Brazil and Mexico. I don't think so. Here's the manifests. Here's how many actually came. Nowhere near the numbers they say. And then again, here's where they did all the imports. And on a flat earth map, this makes total sense because Africa is right next to South America and then they'd go up from here. But here's how they said Brazil getting this massive amount of slaves coming into Brazil. No, it's just all a huge lie. And they were here before Columbus. Here's the Toltecs with the big lips and the ears, big stones. We don't know how they built them. And then here's all the pictures of the African leaders. And then they dressed, Charlie, they dressed to the nines. They were natty dressers. They all, look at the beach. They're all wearing top hats. The kids, they're all dressed beautifully.
Right.
It's fun. The carriages, the baby carriage, excuse me, were absolutely elegant. And then again, here's these maps again showing that here's the circle, and they show griffins. They show all these centaur, half humans, half horses. They were all real.
Right.
Yeah, I really encourage everybody to get into this map, this 1587 map, the David Rumsey map collection at Stanford. It's 10 foot tall. It's one I got in my background here. And you just get into this and you just see all the different, there were unicorns, there were griffins, there were centaurs. They could create. And what's interesting about our 15th chromosome is it matches exactly the missing chromosome of us in animals. And so literally we've been chimeraed, we've been genetically modified. And that can get all the way back to the Anunnaki and those stories there. So again, the flat earth maps showing the Tartarian empires. Here's Louisiana where they owned. Here you can see the nymphs, and here you see the Knights of Columbus, the Knights of Malta.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming in and learning from the Tartarians. And then here you can see the pictures of the griffins and the lizards. And here's the head of a lion, or body of a lion, head of a human. Here's the unicorn. Very, very detailed. And then we get into the star fort. So that about covers it.
Yeah. I got a couple of case study examples that maybe would be helpful for people. One is the Mormon Temple in Salt Lake. I've looked at that. It, of course, has the geometry. That's why I'm interested in it. But it also has the characteristics of the mud flood. The building has the lower floor windows are literally just peeking up from the bottom. They've done excavations I think it was in the 60s, and they're doing another renovation now. And in both cases, they've brought the earth out from around the building, and you can tell that there was another entire floor of that building that was underground when they supposedly built the temple. There are only a portion going up because they're at ground level. Once they dug out, there were deep holes there where there was formerly looks like an excavation where there was a stairway going down a lot further to obviously a much lower ground level.
Yeah, that's what I'm bringing up now. This is loading up now, but this is a great site. AmericaIsTheOldWorld.com. Remember I was telling you about everything came from here.
Yes.
And I'm trying to bring this down. Come on. Hang on 1 second. Let me see if I can get it this way. Okay, you're in there, but you're not moving. So this site, I got to get down low to get.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's not letting me scroll down here. Hang on 1 second. Let me try it this way. All right, I'm going to go to here, try here. So these are the Washita Moors, M-O-R-S or M-U-U-R-S. And again, it dovetails perfectly with exactly what you're saying. And I just did a video on this. It's my second part. I'm doing like a 4-part series, the mound builders and whatnot. Now it's frozen again. There we go. All right. So again, here's that map we were talking about in Granada. It used to be Granada. That's from Spain.
Okay.
You can see the 1810 map. The old world, Spain took a lot of land from the Moors. The Nagas, that's where the word niga comes from, the Nagas, which means serpent. La Florida once covered several states. Granada has the same name as the pomegranate in Spanish. Fruit of Granada is their symbol of the promised land. So the United States was literally the promised land. And the Amaro Washitu Degdumandias, the Moors were originally a group of priests from Egypt of the West, also known as the Dogon, Olmecs, and Mayans. The term Washita is a corruption of Urshita. So I get into the whole thing of Mura, America, Amuraka. Ka is the Egyptian word for energy healing.
Okay.
And then you see Puta, Judah, Utah, Puta, Judah, Utah, which covered Mexico and several states in California, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas. Kind of a big area. Oh, we have Luxor in Memphis, Tennessee. Why are 20 cities in the United States named Moscow?
So all the names, the Moabs, Moab, Utah, Morocco, India, they all exported that from here. We were the center. Really cool, this whole story, which I got another book coming out. So again.
Well, I can tell this is new information for me.
Yeah, no, this gets into the bald eagle holding 13 arrows, the Moorish seal. This Elbe wrote the book, The Return of the Ancient Ones. 85% of the blacks in America were already here before the slave trade. This means that it's suppressed history. It's got the links, it's got the notes. America, BC, alabaster egg of a King Tut was found there. Remember we talked about Grand Canyon having all the Egyptian artifacts?
Right.
Here's your proof. Here's your proof. All the imperial bloodlines, they married with King Louis. They married into the throne, and then Europe eventually took over. That's how they used to do it. They'd marry into it, and then they'd take over. Ameria. So this guy, Henry Joseph Turner, has this land that he still has to this day, where it gets into a little further down here, the treaties and the agreements. Thomas Jefferson recognized them, the Washitas, and owning the land. And they actually have a United Nations documentation, National Archives and elsewhere, that confirm the Washington Moor presence right here in North America land thousands of years before the arrival of the first Europeans, called the Ancient Ones, geophysical mound builders. And the prior claim to land was never disputed. In fact, in an 1848 Supreme Court ruling, the U.S. government recognized that the Washita proper and Washita Terra included Florida's, that Supreme Court cases recognized their rights to these lands. And now they're starting to give them back. Did you see where they're saying that they're going to give 25 million acres to black farmers because Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
This is because of the settlement of this. The UN Declaration of the Rights of the Indigenous People, whose property was taken away from them, is now being given back, and they're giving it back as Black Lives Matter. And they're making it into something about giving them back the lands that were already there because the Supreme Court said they had to. The Supreme Court ruled that Washington had these lands that became effective in 1993. And this is the Indigenous People Act, the United Nations number 25, sovereign independent nation, 1781, there's that date. So you can see that this is how they took them over. The League of Nations, and they claimed their lands back. But this was the ancient Sumer, Samaria, Amura, America, Amuru. The original name America was Amuru according to the 1936 Webster's Dictionary. America is defined as an aboriginal or one of the various copper-colored natives found on the American continents by the Europeans. Isn't this fascinating?
This is absolutely fascinating.
So the Acadia, Canada, Wakanada, New Scotland, Nova Scotia, all the names are all derivatives. France, if you look up in this map up here, and you zoom in, this is Canada. I don't know if I can zoom in here, but it shows France, FRA. You can see it somewhere in here. Maybe it's down a little. You got to zoom in on this thing. I can't do on this, but it shows that France was here. Here's California. I mean, it just shows this all the naming of the European names came from here. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Everything's backwards. It's upside down and convoluted, because trying to make sense of it all, you have to stand on your head and look the other way.
Right.
Okay. And so they have this whole history, and what I wanted to finish with here. I've done a second video, and I'm doing another one. The Iroquois, remember the Iroquois and the Holmes Treaty, the 5 civilized tribes?
Yes.
This is the name. These are the 5 civilized Christian tribes: Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole. And all they did was say, oh, they were Indians. No, they were Washitas. They were the original Washita Moors. They just combined them all and just broke them up. And so you could never put it all together. America is defined as an aboriginal or one of the various copper-colored natives on the American continents by the Europeans. And so this whole naming, Merovingians, Sumerians, all these ancients, the Olmecs, all these ancients, they said, Olmec means Old Mexico. Well, that makes sense. Olmec, Old Mexico. Al Moroccan, Old Morocco, India. The Washitas were survivors of the Atlantis disaster. So the Olmecs were not from Africa. There have been no Olmec heads found in Africa. Anyway, so he goes on, and he's got these books that I just ordered, but he's got a lot of history here. You can see Granada land is probably, I haven't gone through these yet. I can't wait. But here's a bunch of history, ancient Greek and ancient Rome in America. I just ordered his books over here. San Francisco, I want to get into that one. I mean, these are all recent posts. These are all 2020s. So here's a whole bunch of more information for us to go through. But he's got this book, America, the Promised Land, under books here. And so this revisionist history is something we need to add to the archives. America is the old world. And then this is the book I just ordered on this as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, the guy does his homework, or girl, whoever's doing this. Oldest pyramids, most pyramids in America. I haven't looked at this yet. This is new.
Right.
The Cholula is the biggest pyramid in the world. Did you know that?
No.
Almost twice that of the Great Pyramid. Cholula Pyramid is also a step pyramid. Step pyramids were the first pyramids. So this is in the Americas. Where is this?
They built a church on top. Wow.
Of course. Central and North America. I mean, I kind of wanted just to go around all the pyramids and just check them out. Just
sure.
Pyramids in America. Oh, this is right up your alley, Charlie.
You bet. You bet.
So yeah, so these are links. Largest adobe pyramid in the world is Chihuahua, Peru. You know, and they got the ball courts and all these other types of pyramids out here, and all those have frequency resonance. You go down to that court and they say you could hear from any part half a mile away. You could hear just like you're standing next to somebody. I didn't know this. Spirit Cave mummy from Spirit Cave, Fallon, Nevada. 9,400 years old. Did not know that.
Oldest mummy in the world. Wow. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, it is. Here's all the pyramid lists right here. First of the Yucatan. Lists all the timing of the pyramids. This is awesome.
Right. Right.
More homework, more homework. Anyway, so this side I found just absolutely fascinating. So I'll share this with you.
Oh, sure. Please do. And, you know, I think what this has done is to open up a whole new world for the people who are interested in pyramids to see that this has been, you know, actively hidden. And that was really what I wanted to do more than anything else, was to get that point across, that this information, and to sum up, maybe a good way to end for the listeners. With respect to the Tartarians themselves, you know, there is a declassified CIA document that points to the fact that the Soviet Union actively rewrote its history with respect to the Tartarian Empire, and that was a document written, I think, in 1957 that was declassified about 40 years later. So, you know, a question that I'd have for you, if the Soviet Union / currently Russian government, you know, or Stalin was interested and was successful in rewriting the history, we have to have been complicit. And I know you mentioned the Rockefellers and so forth. How were we in the United States? How was our history rewritten such that we don't know about this?
Well, I mean, how far back? I mean, it just showed that apparently thousands and thousands of years ago, the history of us, you know, here, I was just bringing up that document for you. I just like to show people so we're not just blowing smoke up our butts when we say.
Well, right, exactly. I'm trying to give them facts, you know, or places they can go to.
Let me just show you again.
There you go. That's the exact paragraph I'm talking about. Yeah.
In other words, Tartar history was to be rewritten. This is from a CIA document, 1957? That was released just a few years ago.
Right.
Declassified 1998, created in 1957. Yeah. All right. So, and here's the owl, you know, and you know about the owl and the secret societies. So here it says, in other words, Tartar history was to be rewritten. Let us be frank, was to be falsified, CIA. in order to eliminate references to Great Russian aggressions and hide the facts of the real course of Tartar-Russian relations. And this is no isolated case. In every Muslim area within the USSR, historians on orders of the Communist Party have rewritten history to distort the facts so that the Russians appear always in a good light. So they make the Tartarians the bad guy. They say they eliminate history because we don't want to put them in a bad light, and they admit to altering history. So
Right.
the United States there's only 50 miles, 56 miles of difference between Alaska and the Russian border.
Right.
You'd think if we're at fighting with Russia, we'd have castles on castles and energy beams pointing at each other 50 miles away in Russia because we're going to attack Russia. That's where we go, right?
Yeah.
Unless that used to be the land bridge, unless there used to be railroads underneath, which there are tunnels under that area. And so the Tartarians were the Russians, were the Washitas. They came back and forth. They traveled anywhere. They were everywhere. And so you can't really say the United States of America until you say what America was. And this is what I think we're defining now, Charlie, is America was the Tartarians.
Right.
It's not North America, South America, Central America, it's all of it. That's why they called it America.
Right.
So and they break it down into this, that, and the other thing. Oh, US, no, we're all part of this much greater her story of this benevolent society where everyone was equal, where giants ruled, where everybody lived in peace and harmony, and they used frequencies to keep everybody healthy and peaceful. And they used it for all this technology for good means. And this is where we're heading again. This is where, like I talked to you earlier about biomagnetic healing, using magnet healing, using power of magnets, power of attraction.
Right.
And so what we do now is, let me show you real quick. And you can see this mannequin I have in the back, and I have over 300 placements of magnets. So let's say, Charlie, you were having an issue with, I can just scan you and find out. This is called muscle testing. So I can ask questions of the universe, like, would it be okay if I have a session with Charlie today? Yes. My fingers will cross with a yes. My fingers will stay the same for the no.
Right. Okay.
No. Is my name Jamie? Yes. My fingers will automatically, and you can do this way. Show me a yes, show me a no. This is muscle testing. And you can try this yourself too, Charlie. You can ask questions of the universe. So let me just start this way. Put your hands up and your thumbs where your thumbs are even.
Okay.
Everybody can do this. So if you're listening here, I want you to try this because this will guide you for the rest of your life when, not if, when this comes to you. All right. So Charlie, twiddle your thumbs back and forth. Just separate them. Yeah, just you can move them forward, move them forward, move them back, move them towards you and away, towards your chest, back and forth, whatever works. Okay, now stop and see if your thumb tops are even. Are they even?
Yes.
All right, now twiddle them again, and I'm going to give you a question for your thumbs. And when you ask the question, stop twiddling and see if one thumb has gotten longer than the other. Okay.
If it's gotten longer.
Yep. Or move, change. Twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Now separate your fingers. Just don't put them together. Just you want them to move around. Just let your thumbs move. Twiddle,
oh, okay.
And then say, show me a yes. And then stop twiddling. Say, show me a yes. No, put them together. So you're going to do it like this. So here's my thumbs. Twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Show me a yes. Show me a no.
I got it. Okay.
So your right one went longer.
Yes.
Put them back together. No, just stop and show they're together, so they're even. Okay, now say, do it again. That's, yeah, there you go. Now twiddle, clear your mind, clear your shoulders, go to your happy place. Now say, show me a no. Keep your eyes closed. Say, show me a no, and look.
Okay.
Which one's longer?
Left hand. The left thumb is up.
Do it again. Twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Say, is my name Charlie?
My name is Charlie. Yep.
Put them together. Twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Say, is my name Jamie?
My name is Jamie. Yeah.
So now now you can ask the universe yes and no questions, and it'll work through you to whatever you have. Is this the right frequency for the pyramid? Is this frequency accurate? Is my thesis on this right? When I'm doing the Tartarian book, I was doing this all the time. Is this information correct? If I got a yes, I put it in the book. This is the spirit guides working through us. This is also about the grand conjunction happening in astrology that's opening up these portals of consciousness. So now you can ask the questions of the universe. You can do it this way. I can do it in prayer, my middle finger. Show me a yes. one finger gets longer, show me a no, the other middle finger gets longer. Or I could do it this way, when a yes crosses over, show me a yes, show me a no. So now what I can do is I can scan people and I can find out issues and I can do placements based on issues and bring us back into harmony. Black is a pulling, attraction, feminine, divine, nurture, nature, magnet. It's pulling. Red is pushing. It's the male principle. It's pushing out. It's creative. So we push-pull action. So when we get a push-pull action, let me get bigger ones, are easier to look at. And what's the energy of the earth? 7.48 hertz. What's the energy of humans? 7.56. What's the energy of the ions? 7.68. It's all harmonic frequencies, all similar between the earth, between us, and between the sky. So here I have a black one, and here I have a red one. What attracts? Opposites, right?
Right.
There's a field of energy, right? Now, if I flip it over to red, it won't come together.
Right.
Why? Negative and negative make a positive, but a positive and positive make what? War. Male and male.
Right.
Okay, but female does the same thing. It has the same energy. So there's two fields I've shown. One is resistance. One is attraction. And then the third field is universal energy. Okay, this is the ether. This is what we're talking about, the magnetite, everything. So here's metal. Okay, the red sticks to it. Wait, the black sticks to it too. So here's a third field of energy, the toroidal field. This is the energy that comes out through the North Pole, goes around the Arctic Circle like a speaker, and brings the energy up. And this is what the Tartarians were tapping into. The ancient Egyptians called it Ka. The ancient Chinese call it Qi. The ancient Vedics call it prana. In the Western world, for subtle energy healing, the word is, what's the word?
For
Subtle
the energy?
Ka, Chi, prana, what's our word for it?
Well, I might call it scalar waves. I don't know. I don't know where you're going.
We don't have a name for it.
Oh, well, that's it. Okay. That's the answer.
We don't
Yeah.
want to heal, we want to profit. It's always about treating the dis-ease. Up until 1910, healing with magnets was considered the homeopathic healing until the Flexner report came out, whose brother was President Rockefeller, who came out and said, this is quackery to use magnets to heal, lodestones.
Right.
They use lodestones. So this is what we're doing now, is we're using magnets. So if I wanted to scan you, Charlie, for some issue, I would go, does Charlie have any issues? We can help him with magnets today. Yes. Is the first issue dealing with the head, the neck, the thorax. So then I would get in my book and I'd look under thorax. I can do it right now. And this is, I just learned this a year and a half ago because I got attacked for all my work and I became, my legs got taken out and I learned, somebody turned me on to magnets and I got a hold of Dr. Garcia and took his training sessions. So now I've got a book on all the different placements that this medical doctor has put together on magnetic healing. And I'm going to look under thorax and then I'm going to scan this list for Charlie. Charlie, have any issues on this page? Yes. Odd number, even number, 60 to 70, 70, 80, 70, 72. So this is dealing with a hiatus and a testicle, a bacteria, something to do with ulcers, gastronomical, or reflux. It could be something similar at symptoms at the cellular level. It could be symptoms on the surface level. And so I can go through for emotions. I can scan through physical issues, stomach, head, digest. Charlie have any issues in his head, his eyes, his nasal, his throat, his heart, his respiratory. So I'm getting stuff around your throat. I'm getting stuff around respiratory. I'm getting stuff around smoking. Are you a smoker at all? Or have you smoked?
No.
Something to do with respiratory. So that's how I drill down into somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then on these placements, like for thorax, I would place it on Maggie here. And I could set these placements for healing with my intention.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to physically, I have the magnets already on there. So I'll say, okay, for this placement for Charlie, can you set that intention for 15 minutes? Yes. Is it set? Yes. Is there other placements? Yes. So then I would scroll through and find out what other placements are needed. And then I could do that. And then I could scan your brain. I could go through all your brain points and I could scan all the brain points for traumatic brain injuries that people have. This is what I do regularly for heavy metal toxins. I don't know if you can
Hmm.
see that, but these are all for spraying from geoengineering. We're using to detoxify. We're lifting artificial intelligence, magnets, with all these new vaccines, with all the RNA crap they're putting in them that have nanobots in them. We're able to mitigate some of the effects
Right. Not all. Yeah.
of the nanobots, synthetic biology that's going in the vaccines, the mRNA. So we're having some answers. And so this biomag healing is a universal energy that anybody can learn to do. And it's non-invasive. If I do the placements wrong, it just simply doesn't work. I can't, unless you got a pacemaker, I can't hurt you.
Right.
So here's what the Tartarians use. This is their centers, but they did it in big cathedrals. They did it on big stages.
Right. Right.
We're doing it one-on-one.
Sure.
I
Sure.
can do it remotely. In fact, you being in Pennsylvania, if I wanted to work with you, I would do scans of you and I would do placements here with my intention of helping you. And many times, most times, people get results. Sometimes
Sure.
significant, profound results. My dad at 95 had a cancer tumor. They're all medical family. They think I'm an absolute nutcase. And they all wanted to do surgery at 95 years old, surgery, immunotherapy, or radiation. We're trying to decide. I'm like, well, can I help? No, we don't want your help. Okay. And I had to ask permission. Can I help my dad? And came back, no. So here's a medical doctor for 30 years. My dad's got cancer. They're going to cut him up and all this. And I can help him, I know, but I'm not allowed to, because some people have to go through what they have to go through.
That's right. That is exactly right. Yeah.
We can't fix everybody. You have to ask permission
Hmm.
to do this work, because you're working through the spirit guides. They're working through you. So then about a week later, he got immune therapy for his treatment. Week later, she called, well, you better come see dad. It's not good. He's terrible. He's cold. He can hardly get up. His wife's a registered nurse for 30 years.
Yeah.
So I said, can I help my dad now? And I got a yes. So I went to work. I did my scans. I did about 30 placements. And the next morning, she sends out a blast to all her family. It's a miracle. Herb's up again. He's walking. He's got this new walker. It's amazing. The walker's made all the difference for him.
Yeah. The walker.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I sent her my workup. She's a medic. I mean, this book I work from in healing, and this, I get so excited because this is something everybody can do. This is Dr. Garcia's book of all the placements. There's over 300 placements of specific areas for different issues that we all can do on the vertebrae, on the back, on the neck, on the thorax, the abdomen, the pelvis, emotionals. We can go through these. This book is thick. So I go through this and I found 30 to 40 placements. I found stomach cancer in them. And I did placement for that Dr. Garcia prescribed for placements. And next day he's doing much, much better. He's now 4 weeks on. I've got about 5 sessions. I don't tell them when I do it. I ask permission if I get a yes, but it doesn't matter. As long as my dad's getting better, I don't need the credit. I don't need that. But I see it. I get confirmation. So with you muscle testing now, Charlie, you can ask any question. Like my son's coming up today. What time is my son coming? Is it going to be after 2? Yes. Before 3? Yes. Between 2 and 2:30? Yes. Before 2:15? No. After 2:15? Yes. 2:16, 2:17, 2:18, 2:19. I can almost guarantee you my son's going to show up at the front at 2:20, 2:19. That's how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And so we have answers now that are opening up. Just as the dark comes omnipresent and seems overwhelming, here are these amazing historical narratives of who we truly are and what our potentiality is to be able to be Tartarians once again.
Right.
You know, that's the beauty of all this. So we're the seeds of knowledge, as I call it. We're not going to see the fruits. We're not going to see the beautiful pipe organs played again and everybody living in peace and travel everywhere and not have to eat food because we don't need it. And all the animals get to survive and all the plants get to thrive. And we live in harmony and abundance with nature as was once. That would be awesome. But we're setting the table, which is the hardest work of any soul can do for the future of all to benefit from.
That's right. That's right. And I feel like, the work you're doing, and it's such a compliment with what I'm doing. I'm in a totally different field, but we have to think holistically. We have to think about the fact that these people knew the geometry. They knew how numbers and geometry and harmonics created our environment and kept us healthy, kept us well for a long time, gave us free energy. So it's all fascinating. And I really do want to thank you today for taking the time to be with us. And I think a lot of people have learned a tremendous amount. One thing I'd like to do before we finish up, would you please tell people where they can get your book? And also, if they are interested in healing sessions, for example, how they might get in touch with you.
Sure. Let me just pull up. Just want to show one more thing before we sign off.
Oh, okay.
This dovetails where we're heading, and I actually had an experience with this, so I can speak firsthand in it. So this lady stayed with me for a week, 5 days. Name's Sarah, I think. This was about 4 years ago. And she's what's called a breatharian.
Yes.
She hasn't eaten in 7 years. There she is. Sarah. So Sarah stayed with me, and we had an amazing conversation. And it's part of it. She meditates every day, and she learned that she, on an emotional level, I'm no longer living in fight or flight. She doesn't have to eat. She went through a down period. She had to go through it, and then she came out. And there's actually prana conventions now of people that don't need food. So again, can we photosynthesize like plants? Can we be as smart as animals? You know, all these things are things that we're learning about. But I just wanted to show that there are, you know, what we say, there are people that are doing this work that we're talking about doing. People are already doing that. So this is my website I created. I'm calling it Organic Self-Healing Store, because everybody can do this to themselves. Notice the bottom, the key to universal healing is frequency, energy, and vibration. If you click on this link down here, it goes to my website. And on that website, I list just a plethora of information about learning about biomag healing, about the history of magnets. Franz Anton Mesmer, where mesmerize comes from, he used magnets. As far as the store goes, a really cool thing too about Charlie, about magnets, it's harmonious with nature. So what I found was, these are the magnets here that we use for healing. These magnets here, you can get 2 of these magnets and you can stick them on each side of your washing machine drum, and you'll never need to use detergent anymore. Gets rid of detergent. So you can get some of these magnets here. This one, the structured water one, creates the structured water. You're talking about sacred geometry. That's what it creates. So if you look at the configuration of this, there's 4 pair of magnets inside this sleeve, and you put it on the water, and immediately the iron, I have a well, and the iron went away. My hair got lighter. The dogs would only drink this water. The laundry, the clothes got softer. And again, this you can put over your water intake and immediately improve your water. I offer a 6-hour self-healing webinar that you can download. This is Dr. Garcia's book I was just showing you, the Practitioner's Guidebook. Okay. These are creams that this other doctor, medical doctor, Dr. Rin, developed, and these are amazing. A lot of our issues are mold related. And so this Myco 3 helps with mold. This Ultra Cream, women buy this, it's expensive, but it's amazing how much younger their skin gets, the skin, the wrinkles and everything, unbelievable. And this Ultra Cream, this pain relief for the back, the Cera Cream, all sorts of pain issues and whatnot. So I'm going to keep expanding that. I'm doing magnetic beds. Magnetic agriculture is a huge business. I got 30 to 40% greater yields in my crops this year by putting magnetite in the soil and magnetizing the seed starts. And so I was able to grow a lot better. And it's known, but not well known, that magnets can improve crops by a major way. All right. So then under services, I offer to remote heal, $250. I do 3 sessions, and I scan you and do placements for you. And then also educational webinars. This is Dr. Garcia, who I learned from his talks, and then also do astrology readings because it's all connected as well. And then as far as the books go, I don't think I've added the Tartarian book on here yet, but these are the books I have. This is Paradise Lost. This is about the California fires. You can get on Amazon. It's also free on my website. I'll share the link with you, plaintruth.info. I put all these books out for free because this information needs to get out. These fires were not forest fires. Flat Earth, here's my Flat Earth book, Geoengineering, and then the Tartarian book I've got to add on here as well. But they're all on Amazon under James W. Lee.
Right.
You can find those all.
Interestingly enough, one of my readers, after I did the show last week and mentioned your book, called me on Monday and said she already had the book. And I said, how did you get it that fast? It's on a website called onelib.org. It's a public access library. I didn't know if you knew that, but it's.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. And it's really fun to find when I can find these people that have copied it and shared it, and then other people pick it up, because that's my intention. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never had so many Tartarian books since I started selling October 11th. I've sold over 600 copies.
Yeah.
Far and away more than I've sold of any other book. So this is like lighting a fire under people, like, people that want to know, they're kind of on the edge of this alternative narrative. And then we get this, but I'm on the back of all these other people that have done all the work. I just put it into a condensed, unified version that we could get an idea of what we're learning about, and then just to learn about Utah and all this, a whole nother sidebar, not sidebar, main bar, to who we are, who we really come from,
right.
what we're about.
That's right.
And then we find about magnets, and that we can heal people remotely, and it crosses all racial barriers. Children can do it. My son has not been the smartest kid in the room, and we've always had tutors for him. And then I did these placements for ADHD, for shyness, whatever. And a week later, he got the second highest score on his class. And this is a Waldorf school. This isn't classes.
Wow.
And bedwetting. He had issues with bedwetting younger. He did a couple placements, never wet his bed again. He had 103.7 temperature. Within a day, I've been able to bring that down to 99 using magnets.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is very, 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 very beginning of this universal healing protocol.
That's right.
It tails perfectly into the magnetricity of what the Tartarians are all about.
Well, and just as a similar context, I mean, the Russians have done all this research with these pyramids. They've shown dramatic reductions in infectious diseases, cancer, you name it. And so all of these technologies obviously were available in the past, and they were put to good use. So it is our job, and hopefully our joy, to rediscover all of these topics and areas of healing going forward. So anyway, again, I want to thank you again for your time. And as always, to those listening, tell your friends about Stargate Pyramids and the Pyramid Science Foundation. And thank you again, Jamie, for being with us today.
Harley, thank you. It was a pleasure to go over it all. I'm glad you're as interested as I am in this stuff. It's awesome.
Oh, I'm amazed. And I hope we can do this again. Thank you.
Thanks, I will. Have a good day.
All right. I'll edit this. It's probably too long for most people, so we'll have to edit some stuff out. But